2 o'clock a.m. on a rain-soaked November night, mechanic Luke Carter answered a call meant for someone else, a dying woman's plea that would shatter everything he knew about survival, love, and the price of showing up when the world expects you to walk away. What started as compassion became a $500,000 contract, a media firestorm, and a love story that proved sometimes the wrong number dials exactly the right person. Before we dive in, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The phone's shrill ring split through Luke Carter's dreamless sleep like a blade through silk. His calloused hand shot out from under the threadbare comforter, fumbling across the nightstand, knocking over an empty coffee mug before finding the vibrating device. The screen's harsh glow burned his eyes. 2:07 a.m. Unknown number. His first instinct was to decline. Nothing good ever came from calls at this hour. But something, maybe the memory of his wife's late-night emergency, maybe just mechanic's intuition that told him when something was seriously wrong, made his thumb swipe right. Hello? His voice came out rough, scratchy with interrupted sleep. What he heard next made his blood run cold. James, a woman's voice, barely above a whisper, trembling with fear and pain. James, please, I'm so scared. I can't breathe right. Don't let me die alone. Please. Room 302, Memorial. Please, James. Luke sat bolt upright, his heart hammering against his ribs. The desperation in that voice. It was the sound of someone clinging to life by their fingernails. The sound of someone drowning in the dark. Ma'am, I think you have the wrong... Don't hang up, she gasped, and he could hear tears in those words. Please don't hang up. I'm so alone. It hurts to breathe. James, where are you? Luke's throat tightened. He should correct her, should tell her to call 911, should hang up and go back to sleep because he had to be at Martinez Auto Shop by 6:30, and Mia needed lunch money, and the electric bill was already 3 days late. But all he could hear was another woman's voice from 10 years ago, weak and fading in a delivery room, whispering his name as the monitors screamed and the doctor shouted and the world ended and began simultaneously. I'm here, he said, his decision made in that instant. I'm here and I'm coming. Memorial Hospital, room 302. Yes, she breathed. Please hurry. I'm so scared. What's your name? Eleanor. A pause filled with labored breathing. Eleanor Vale. Eleanor, my name is Luke. I'm not James, but I'm coming anyway. Stay on the line with me. Can you do that? You're not James. No, ma'am, but I'm 15 minutes away and I'm leaving right now. He was already moving, yanking on yesterday's jeans, grabbing the first clean shirt his fingers found in the dark. His boots, still unlaced from when he'd kicked them off 6 hours ago, went on fast. Why? Her voice was so small. Why would you come for a stranger? Luke paused at his bedroom door, looking back at the phone on speaker on his bed. Because nobody should die alone. Nobody. He grabbed the phone, checking on Mia as he passed her room. His 10-year-old daughter was dead asleep, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one arm draped over the stuffed elephant her mother had given her the day she was born. Mrs. Chen next door had a key for emergencies. He'd be back before Mia woke up. He had to be. Eleanor, I'm getting in my truck now. Tell me what's happening. What's wrong? Cancer, she whispered as he fired up his ancient Ford F-150. Pancreatic. It's eating me alive. James was supposed to be here. He promised, but he's not coming. Nobody's coming. Luke pulled out of his parking spot in the cramped apartment complex, heading toward downtown Portland. Rain hammered his windshield, and the wipers beat a rhythm that matched his racing heart. I'm coming, he repeated. Keep talking to me. Tell me about James. My fiancé. Was my fiancé. He left 3 weeks ago when they told me stage 4. Said he couldn't watch me die. Said it was too hard. Her voice cracked. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'm being selfish calling him, begging him. I don't want to be alone when it happens. Luke's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What kind of coward walks away from someone they love because things get hard? A sound that might have been a laugh or a sob came through the phone. The realistic kind, maybe. Who wants to sign up for this? The chemo, the vomiting, the pain. I'm 29 years old and I look like I'm 60. My hair's gone. My body's eating itself. I'm not the woman he fell in love with. Then he didn't love you, Luke said flatly. He loved an idea of you. Love means showing up, especially when it's hard. Is that what you did for someone? Luke's jaw clenched. My wife, Sarah, she died giving birth to our daughter. Complications. The doctors said there was nothing anyone could do, but I stayed. I held her hand until the very end. She shouldn't have had to go through that alone. Silence on the other end, except for Eleanor's ragged breathing. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. Don't be. She gave me the greatest gift anyone ever could. Our daughter, Mia. She's 10 now, smart as hell. Tougher than I'll ever be. You're a good father. I try. Memorial's just ahead. I'm coming up to the entrance now. Luke pulled into the emergency parking area, not caring about the no parking signs. He grabbed his wallet and phone, jogging through the rain toward the automatic doors. The hospital at 2:30 a.m. was a study in institutional liminal space. Too bright, too quiet, smelling of antiseptic and despair. A tired-looking security guard glanced up from his phone, but didn't stop Luke as he strode toward the elevators. Which floor, Luke asked, punching the button. Third. But Luke, you don't have to do this. You don't know me. Getting to know you right now. What's your favorite color? What? She sounded confused. Favorite color? Come on, distract yourself. The elevator dinged, opening onto the third floor. Luke stepped out into a corridor of closed doors and dimmed lights. Copper? Eleanor said. Like autumn leaves. Like my hair used to be before. Before doesn't matter. Room 302, right? Last door on the left. Luke found it. The door was slightly ajar, spilling a wedge of pale light into the hallway. He pushed it open slowly. The room was small, sterile, and heartbreaking. Monitors beeped softly. An IV stand stood sentinel beside the bed. And there, in the center of it all, propped up against white pillows, was Eleanor Vale. She was tiny. That was his first thought. Fragile as spun glass, swimming in a hospital gown, her skin pale as the sheets. A thin oxygen tube ran under her nose. Her head was wrapped in a patterned silk scarf, and her eyes, huge in her thin face, locked onto his with an intensity that made his chest tight. You're real, she breathed, phone still pressed to her ear, even though he was standing right there. Luke lowered his own phone, sliding it into his pocket. I'm real, and you're not alone anymore. Those words, simple, unadorned, hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Her face crumpled and tears spilled down her hollow cheeks. You came. You actually came. He crossed to her bedside in 3 strides, and when her thin hand reached out, trembling, he took it without hesitation. Her fingers were cold, her grip weak but desperate. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being here, for showing up. I know it's crazy. I know you don't know me, but I was so scared and I didn't want to die alone. And James's number wasn't working, and I just kept hitting redial and... Hey, Luke interrupted gently, sitting in the visitor's chair beside her bed. Breathe. You're okay. I've got you. You don't even know me. So tell me. We've got time. What does Eleanor Vale do when she's not fighting cancer in hospital rooms at 2 a.m? She let out a shaky laugh that turned into a cough. Luke grabbed the water cup from her bedside table, helping her take small sips through the straw. I run a company, she said when she could speak again. Vala Media Group. My father built it, and when he died 3 years ago, it became mine. Newspapers, digital platforms, 3 television stations. It's my whole life. Was my whole life. Sounds important. It was supposed to be my legacy. Now I'm just trying to survive long enough to make sure it doesn't fall apart. Her eyes searched his face. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone polished. You look like you work with your hands. Luke glanced down at his calloused palms, the permanent grease stains under his nails. Mechanic, Martinez Auto Shop. I fix things that are broken. Can you fix me? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with more than just medicine and science. I can stay, Luke said quietly. That's what you asked for, someone to stay. So I'm staying. Eleanor's eyes filled with fresh tears. I don't understand why. You have a daughter. You have work in the morning. Why would you stay here with a dying stranger? Luke was quiet for a long moment, watching the monitors beep their steady rhythm, watching this fierce, fragile woman who'd been brave enough to reach out into the dark and ask for help. My wife, he finally said. Sarah. When she was dying, she was terrified. Not of death exactly, but of being alone when it happened, of the moment when her hand would be empty and there'd be nobody to hold on to. I promised her I'd be there, and I was. I held her until she was gone. He met Eleanor's gaze. When you called me tonight, I heard that same fear in your voice, and I couldn't let someone go through that. Not if I could help. You're a good man, Luke Carter. I'm just a guy who answered his phone. They sat in silence for a while, the only sounds the quiet beeping of machines and the rain against the window. Eleanor's breathing had evened out, and some color had returned to her face. The crisis, whatever it had been, seemed to have passed. Tell me about Mia, Eleanor said eventually. Luke's whole face transformed when he smiled. She's incredible. Straight A student, wants to be a marine biologist. She's obsessed with octopuses. Did you know they have 3 hearts? I didn't. Yeah, Mia tells me octopus facts constantly. She's got this way of seeing the world that's just pure. You know, like everything's still full of wonder and possibility. His smile faded slightly. I worry I'm failing her. Working 60-hour weeks just to keep us afloat. Never enough money for the school trips or the new laptop she needs. Living in a 2-bedroom apartment that smells like the Indian restaurant downstairs. But she has you, Eleanor said. That's worth more than money. Is it? I don't know anymore. Sometimes I wonder if she'd be better off with someone who could give her more. Someone who loves her less? Because that's the trade-off, Luke. Money or love. Very rarely both. He looked at her curiously. That sounds like experience talking. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. My father loved his company more than he loved me. My mother loved her social position more than anything else. James loved the idea of the veil heiress, not the actual person dying of cancer. So yes, I know something about the price of money. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me to recognize the real thing when I see it. She squeezed his hand weakly, like a mechanic who drives across town at 2 a.m. for a wrong number. A nurse entered then, a kind-faced black woman in purple scrubs who stopped short when she saw Luke. Oh, I didn't realize Mrs. Vale had a visitor. Sir, visiting hours are... He's staying, Eleanor cut in, her voice suddenly sharp with authority. Despite her weakened state, there was steel beneath. Luke is staying, all night if necessary. The nurse glanced between them, clearly weighing hospital policy against the determination in Eleanor's eyes. I'll need to check with the doctor, she said finally. Check with whoever you want, but he stays. Eleanor's grip on Luke's hand tightened. Please. The nurse softened. Let me see what I can do. I'll bring an extra blanket. It gets cold in here. After she left, Eleanor sagged back against her pillows. Sorry, I don't usually pull the imperious heiress routine, but you needed someone to stay. I get it. Luke settled back in his chair. I'm not going anywhere, Eleanor. I promise. Why do you keep your promises? Even to strangers? Because a promise is all some people have to hold on to, and I won't be the one who lets go. Something shifted in Eleanor's expression, a crack in whatever armor she'd built around herself. My father used to say that, about promises. He broke every single one he ever made to me. Then he was a fool. They talked through the night as rain drummed against the windows and the hospital settled into its nocturnal rhythm. Eleanor told him about Vale Media Group, about the board members circling like sharks now that she was weak, about her desperate fight to maintain control while her body betrayed her. Luke told her about Mia's last science fair project, a working model of an octopus's nervous system made from straws and string, and about the ancient truck that broke down twice a month but he couldn't afford to replace. Around 4 a.m., a doctor arrived, a severe-looking man in his 50s who introduced himself as Dr. Patel. Mrs. Vale had a significant pain episode, he explained to Luke, checking her charts. The cancer is pressing on several nerves. We've adjusted her medication, but these episodes are becoming more frequent. He looked directly at Eleanor. You called someone, that's good. You shouldn't be alone during these attacks. I called the wrong number, Eleanor said, glancing at Luke. Best mistake I ever made. Dr. Patel studied Luke for a moment. Well, wrong number or not, having support is crucial. Studies show that patients with strong social support systems have better outcomes, even if that support comes from... He trailed off, looking puzzled. A mechanic who answered his phone, Luke supplied. Right. Dr. Patel made some notes. Mrs. Vale, your next chemo session is Thursday. I want to see you in my office tomorrow, today rather, at 2 p.m. We need to discuss adjusting your treatment plan. After he left, Eleanor's eyes drifted closed. You should go, she murmured. Your daughter will wake up soon. Luke checked his phone, 4:47 a.m. Few more minutes. Rest. Luke? Yeah? Will you come back? After you take care of Mia, I know it's asking too much, but I'll come back, he said. Give me your number, your actual number. She recited it, and he programmed it into his phone. As he stood to leave, she caught his hand one more time. Nobody's ever just shown up for me before, she whispered, not without wanting something. Luke squeezed her hand gently. I don't want anything, Eleanor, except maybe to make sure you're okay. Her eyes searched his face, looking for the lie, the angle, finding nothing but sincerity. Then you're the first, she said. Luke made it home by 5:30, exhausted but wired. He quietly let himself in, checked on Mia, still sleeping peacefully, and stood in the shower letting hot water pound his shoulders while his mind spun. What had he just done? Driven across town for a stranger, sat in a hospital room all night with a woman he'd never met, made promises he barely understood. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Eleanor's face, the terror in her eyes when he'd first walked in, the relief when he'd taken her hand, the wonder when he'd stayed. Nobody should die alone. Nobody. He was toweling off when Mia's alarm started chirping. He heard her groan, then the pad of small feet heading to the bathroom. Dad? She called out. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, he said, which was true enough. How about pancakes for breakfast? Mia appeared in his doorway, dark hair sticking up at odd angles, wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with cartoon octopuses. Really? On a school day? Why not? Live dangerously, she grinned, and Luke's heart squeezed. This kid, this perfect, amazing kid who deserves so much more than he could give her. They made pancakes together in their tiny kitchen, Mia chattering about the math test she had today and how her friend Zoe was moving to Seattle and how unfair it was that they couldn't have a pet octopus. They need saltwater tanks, baby, Luke explained, flipping a pancake. Those cost thousands of dollars. I know, Mia sighed dramatically, but when I'm a famous marine biologist, I'm going to have a whole house full of octopus tanks. Deal. I'll come visit and you can teach me octopus facts. Did you know they can taste with their arms? Like their suckers have chemoreceptors that... Luke's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expecting the shop. It was Eleanor. Thank you for last night. I'm sorry for everything. You're a good man, Luke Carter. Take care of your daughter. His stomach dropped. That sounded like a goodbye. He dialed her number immediately. It rang 4 times before she answered. Eleanor, are you okay? Luke. She sounded surprised. I'm fine. Just wanted to thank you properly. Your text sounded like a suicide note. What? No, God, no, I'm not giving up. I'm trying to say thank you without being weird about having a stranger spend the night in my hospital room. Luke leaned against the counter, relief flooding through him. You're not weird, and I'm glad you called, even if it was the wrong number. Mia was watching him curiously, syrup dripping from her fork. Who's that? She mouthed. He held up a finger. 1 minute. Luke, I meant what I said in the text. You don't owe me anything. You showed up when I needed someone, and I'll never forget that, but I don't expect... What time's your appointment today? Luke interrupted. Silence. Dr. Patel said 2 p.m. I'll be there at 1:45. Luke, you can't just... Watch me. See you at 1:45, Eleanor. He hung up before she could protest, then found Mia staring at him with those sharp, too perceptive eyes. Who was that? She asked again. A friend who's going through a hard time. You don't have friends? Luke mock gasped. I have friends. You have Carlos from the shop and Mrs. Chen. That's not friends. That's coworkers and neighbors. When did you get so smart? I was born this way. Mia took another bite of pancake. Is your friend sick? Leave it to his daughter to cut straight to the heart of things. Yeah, Luke admitted. She's very sick. Cancer. Mia's face fell. Like Grandma? Sarah's mother had died of breast cancer when Mia was 6. She still remembered the funeral, the sadness. Similar, Luke said carefully. Is she going to die? I don't know, baby. The doctors are trying to help her. Is that why you're going to see her today? To help? Something like that. Mia studied him for a long moment. Okay, but you have to promise to come pick me up from school. We're doing dissection in science, and I want to tell you all about it. Deal, I promise. Luke dropped Mia at school, worked a brutal 6 hours at the shop, 2 oil changes, 1 transmission rebuild, and a brake job that should have been done 3,000 miles ago. Then cleaned up as best he could and headed to the address Eleanor had texted him. He expected a hospital, maybe a medical building. He did not expect the gleaming glass tower in downtown Portland's most expensive district, with Vale Medical Center etched in chrome letters above the entrance. Luke parked his beat-up truck between a Mercedes and a Tesla, feeling distinctly out of place. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with a receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. I'm here to see Eleanor Vale, he told her. She has an appointment at 2. The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly as she took in his work clothes, clean but clearly not from any designer store. And you are? Luke Carter. She's expecting me. The receptionist typed something, her expression shifting from cool professionalism to barely concealed surprise. Of course, Mr. Carter. Ms. Vale left instructions that you be brought up immediately. 5th floor, Dr. Patel's suite. The elevator is to your right. The 5th floor was quieter, more intimate than the bustling lobby. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, abstract paintings on the walls. This was where the wealthy came to discuss their mortality in climate-controlled comfort. He found the suite and gave his name to another receptionist, who immediately led him down a hallway to a private waiting room. Eleanor was there, sitting in a chair by the window, and Luke barely recognized her. She'd changed from her hospital gown into real clothes, expensive-looking dark slacks and a cream sweater that hung off her thin frame. The silk scarf was gone, replaced by a deep blue beanie that somehow made her huge eyes look even larger. She'd put on makeup, though it couldn't quite hide the hollows in her cheeks or the grayish tint to her skin. But she'd tried. That's what got him. She'd tried to look like herself, like the woman she used to be, and the effort was both heartbreaking and beautiful. You came, she said, standing carefully. I half thought you'd realize how crazy this is and stay away. I promised. I don't break promises. So I'm learning. She gestured to the chair beside hers. Dr. Patel is running late. Apparently being sick doesn't exempt you from waiting rooms. Luke sat, noticing how she moved, slow, careful, like everything hurt. How are you feeling? Truthfully, like I've been hit by a truck, but better than last night. She smiled slightly. Thanks to you. Eleanor Vale? A nurse stood in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Eleanor rose and Luke stood with her automatically. Oh, the nurse said, glancing between them. Will your friend be joining you? Eleanor looked at Luke, and in her eyes, he saw the question she was really asking. Will you? If that's okay, Luke said. More than okay. Eleanor's hand found his, briefly, gratefully. He's with me. Dr. Patel's office was warm, filled with books and family photos. The doctor himself looked less severe here, more human. Eleanor, he greeted, then nodded at Luke. Mr. Carter, good to see you again. They settled into chairs across from his desk while Dr. Patel pulled up scans on his computer screen. Let's talk about where we are, he said, not unkindly. The current chemo protocol isn't working as well as we'd hoped. The tumor markers are up, and the latest CT scan shows progression rather than regression. Eleanor's hand tightened on the arm of her chair. Luke saw her knuckles go white. How much progression? She asked, her voice steady despite everything. Significant. I'm recommending we change to a more aggressive protocol. It will be harder on you, more side effects, more fatigue, but it's our best shot at slowing this down. Slowing it down. Eleanor's laugh was hollow, not stopping it. Dr. Patel's face was kind but firm. Eleanor, we discussed this at your diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer at stage 4 is not curable. We're fighting for time, quality time. How much time? That's impossible to say. With this new protocol, if it works, maybe 6 months to a year, possibly more with luck and your body's cooperation. 6 months to a year. Luke felt the words land like physical blows. He'd known Eleanor was sick, had seen it written in every line of her body last night, but hearing the timeline laid out so starkly was different. This woman who'd reached out in the dark, who'd asked him not to let her die alone, would be lucky to see next summer. And if I don't do the new protocol? Eleanor asked. Eleanor? How long, Dr. Patel? The doctor sighed. Maybe 3 months. Less if you have another crisis like last night. Eleanor nodded slowly, taking it in. Luke wanted to say something, do something, but what were words against that kind of sentence? Start the new protocol, Eleanor said finally. When? We can begin Thursday. But Eleanor, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to be brutal. You'll need support. Someone to drive you to and from treatments, help you at home when the side effects hit, be there in case of emergencies. Dr. Patel glanced at Luke. Do you have that support? Eleanor's laugh was brittle. My parents are dead. My fiancé left. My friends all vanished when the word cancer entered the conversation. The board members at my company are more interested in my stock options than my survival. So no, Dr. Patel, I don't have support. I have Luke, who answered a wrong number last night, and I can't exactly ask him to... I'll do it, Luke heard himself say. Both Eleanor and Dr. Patel stared at him. You'll... What? Eleanor asked. I'll be your support. Drive you to treatments, help you out, whatever you need. Luke, you can't. You have a job, a daughter, a life. And you have cancer and nobody. He turned to face her fully. Look, I don't fully understand why, but I can't just walk away now. Not after last night. Not after this. Let me help. You don't even know me. Then I'll get to know you. Dr. Patel cleared his throat. This is unconventional. But Eleanor, he's right. You need someone. If Mr. Carter is willing, he's not willing. He's being nice. There's a difference. Eleanor's eyes shone with unshed tears. Luke, I appreciate what you did last night more than you'll ever know, but I can't ask you to upend your life for a stranger who's probably going to die anyway. You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference. Luke met her gaze steadily. And you're not going to die. Not if I have anything to say about it. That's not how cancer works. Maybe not, but that's how promises work. And I promised you wouldn't be alone. I'm keeping that promise. Silence filled the office. Dr. Patel watched them both with something like wonder on his face. You're insane, Eleanor finally whispered. Probably. But I'm also here. So what's it going to be? She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for the crack in the armor, the ulterior motive, finding nothing but stubborn compassion. Okay, she breathed. Okay, if you're serious, I am. Then yes, I'd be grateful for the help. Dr. Patel nodded, making notes. Excellent. Eleanor, I'll have my nurse coordinator reach out with the new protocol schedule. Mr. Carter, I'll need your contact information as well. You'll be listed as Eleanor's primary emergency contact. After the appointment, they stood in the parking garage beside their vehicles, Eleanor's sleek black Mercedes and Luke's ancient Ford, separated by about $100,000 in two entirely different worlds. I should pay you, Eleanor said abruptly. For your time, gas money, lost wages from work. Luke's jaw tightened. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money, Luke. That's how the world works. Not my world. In my world, you help people because it's the right thing to do. In my world, nothing's free. Everything has a price. Eleanor leaned against her car, suddenly exhausted. I don't know how to accept kindness without compensation. Then learn. Consider it part of your treatment. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. You're very stubborn. Runs in the family. Mia's worse. I'd like to meet her, your daughter, if you think that would be okay. Luke hesitated. He'd kept Mia carefully separate from the messy parts of his life. The money stress, the loneliness, the fear. But something about Eleanor made him want to say yes. Let me think about it, he said. She's been through a lot. Lost her mom, lost her grandmother to cancer. You don't want her to get attached to someone else who's dying. Eleanor's voice was matter of fact. I understand. It's okay. Eleanor, no, really, it's fine. You're already doing more than anyone has a right to ask. She pulled her car keys from her purse. Thank you, Luke, for being here. For being you. Thursday at what time? 10 a.m. But Luke, you don't have to. Thursday at 10. I'll be here. He started toward his truck, then turned back. And Eleanor, you're gonna beat this. I don't care what the statistics say. You're tougher than you look. She laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. How would you know? You just met me. Because anyone strong enough to reach out for help in their darkest moment? Anyone brave enough to keep fighting when everyone else has given up? That person doesn't quit. And I don't help quitters. Eleanor's eyes gleamed with tears. You're going to make me cry again. And I've already cried more in the last 24 hours than the last 5 years combined. Then I'm doing my job right. He drove away, watching her in his rearview mirror, this small, fierce woman standing alone in a parking garage, fighting a war against her own body. He didn't know yet that this moment would change everything. Didn't know that showing up, just showing up, would spiral into something bigger than both of them. Didn't know that the wrong number would become the rightest thing in his life. But he'd made a promise, and Luke Carter kept his promises, even when they led him places he never expected to go, even when they cost more than he thought he could pay, even when they meant holding tight to someone who was slipping away. Because sometimes just being there, just showing up, was the only miracle available, and sometimes that was enough. Thursday morning arrived wrapped in gray mist, the kind of Portland weather that made everything feel muted and distant. Luke had already dropped Mia at school, endured her relentless questions about where he was going and why he seemed distracted, and now sat in the Vale Medical Center parking lot, 10 minutes early, watching expensive cars glide into reserved spots. His phone buzzed. Eleanor, I'm here. 3rd floor infusion center. You really don't have to stay for the whole thing. It takes 4 hours. Luke typed back. See you in 2 minutes. The infusion center was nothing like he'd expected. Instead of the institutional bleakness of the hospital where his mother-in-law had received her treatments, this place looked like a high-end spa. Private rooms with recliners, each with its own window, soft lighting, and enough space that you didn't feel like you were in a medical facility at all. Money, Luke thought, could even make dying look comfortable. Eleanor was already settled in a recliner by the window, an IV port visible in her thin arm. She wore soft clothes, yoga pants, and an oversized sweater, and looked impossibly small against the chair's bulk. A nurse was adjusting the IV line, checking monitors, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who did this dozens of times a day. Luke? Eleanor said, surprise evident in her voice despite the text exchange. You actually came. Told you I would. He took the visitor's chair beside her, noting the way her fingers gripped the armrest. How are you feeling? Terrified, if I'm honest. This new protocol, Dr. Patel wasn't exaggerating about it being aggressive. The side effects list reads like a horror novel. The nurse finished her checks and smiled at them both. You're all set, Ms. Vale. The medication will start flowing in about 2 minutes. Remember, if you feel any unusual symptoms, chest pain, difficulty breathing, severe nausea, you press this button immediately. She indicated the call button. And you, she looked at Luke, you're good company to have. Studies show patients do better with support present during treatment. After she left, Eleanor let out a shaky breath. I keep thinking about what Dr. Patel said. 6 months to a year. Maybe. That's not a lot of time to get your affairs in order. Then don't think about it like that. Think about it like you've got 6 months to live, really live, not just exist. Easy to say, Harder to do when you're pumping poison into your veins, hoping it kills the cancer before it kills you. She glanced at the IV bag, clear liquid beginning to drip down the line. Why are you really here, Luke? And don't say because you promised. There's got to be more to it than that. Luke was quiet for a moment, watching the medication flow. After Sarah died, I was drowning. Had a newborn baby, no idea how to take care of her, working double shifts just to keep the lights on. I was so alone, and I kept thinking that if just one person had shown up, really shown up, not just brought a casserole and left, it would have made all the difference. He met her eyes. You asked someone to show up, so I did. It's that simple. Nothing's ever that simple. Sure it is. You complicate it because you're used to people wanting something. I'm not complicated, Eleanor. I'm a mechanic who fixes broken things and tries to raise his kid right. You needed help. I can give it. End of story. She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her brain working, trying to find the angle, the catch. Then something in her face softened, like a wall coming down brick by brick. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, I'll try to believe that. They sat in comfortable silence as the medication began its work. Luke had brought a book, a thriller Mia's teacher had recommended, but found himself watching Eleanor instead. She'd closed her eyes, her breathing deliberately slow and measured, like she was meditating through the experience. Tell me about Vale Media, he said after a while, needing to fill the quiet with something other than the beep of monitors. You said your father built it. Eleanor's eyes opened. Alexander Vale. He started with one newspaper in 1985, turned it into an empire. 35 years of acquisition, expansion, innovation. When he died, he left it all to me, his only child, his greatest disappointment. Why disappointment? Because I wasn't a son, because I wanted to study journalism instead of business, because I asked questions about ethics instead of just focusing on profit margins. Her voice carried old hurt. He spent my whole childhood telling me I wasn't good enough, then left me his company out of spite or obligation, or maybe just because there was nobody else. I've been trying to prove myself ever since. Sounds exhausting. It was. Now I'm just trying to keep the vultures from picking it apart while I'm still breathing. She shifted in her chair, wincing slightly. My father's old business partner, Richard Harrington, he's been circling since my diagnosis became public knowledge, suggesting I step down for my health, proposing board restructures that would dilute my voting power. He's positioned himself as the concerned family friend while quietly building a coalition to take control. Can he do that? If I'm deemed unfit to lead, yes. And what's more unfit than dying of cancer? Eleanor's laugh was bitter. The board meets in 3 weeks to vote on his proposal. I have enough shares to block it, but only if I'm there to vote. If I'm too sick to attend, if I'm in the hospital, my proxy votes get distributed according to company bylaws, which Harrington helped write. Luke frowned. That's not just business, that's predatory. Welcome to corporate America. The weak get devoured. She turned to look at him. I need to be at that meeting, Luke. I need to walk in there looking strong, capable, in control. Even if it's a lie. Even if I'm falling apart inside. Because if I lose Vale Media, I lose the only thing I have left of my father. The only thing that proves I was worth something. You're worth something without a company. Am I? What am I without Vale Media? A dying woman with no family, no friends, no legacy. At least with the company, I matter. My voice matters. The journalists we employ, the stories we tell, the truth we uncover, that matters. The passion in her voice made Luke sit up straighter. This wasn't about money or power for Eleanor. It was about purpose, about leaving something behind that meant something. Then we'll get you to that meeting, he said. Whatever it takes. We? She raised an eyebrow. Luke, you've already done more than 3 weeks from now. What day? Eleanor sighed, recognizing the futility of arguing. Thursday, November 21st, 2 p.m. at Vale Tower, downtown. Put it on my calendar. I'll be there. To do what? Hold my hand while the board eats me alive? If that's what you need, or I can just drive you there and wait outside. But you won't go through it alone. That's the deal. There is no deal, Luke. You don't owe me anything. Maybe I owe it to myself. Did you think of that? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe I need to do this as much as you need someone to do it. Maybe showing up for you helps me make sense of not being able to show up for Sarah in other ways. Maybe this is how I process grief and guilt and all the messy stuff I've been shoving down for 10 years. Eleanor's eyes widened. That's the most honest thing anyone said to me in months. Good. Then we understand each other. This helps both of us. Stop trying to push me away because you think you're protecting me. I am trying to protect you. People around me get hurt, Luke. My mother drank herself to death trying to live up to my father's standards. My father worked himself into a heart attack. James left me rather than watch me die. I'm toxic. You're sick. There's a difference. Is there? She looked away, out the window where rain had started to fall. Sometimes I think the cancer is just karma. Payment for all the times I put the company ahead of everything else. All the relationships I sacrificed. All the moments I missed because I was chasing my father's approval. Cancer isn't karma. It's just bad luck and worse biology. Stop trying to make it mean something. They fell silent again. The medication dripped steadily. Outside, the rain intensified, streaking the windows, turning the world watery and indistinct. After about an hour, Eleanor's eyes started to drift closed. Talk to me, she murmured. Tell me something good. Something that isn't about sickness or death or corporate warfare. Luke thought for a moment. Mia's science project. She's building a model of a coral reef ecosystem. Spent her entire allowance at the craft store on materials. Our apartment looks like a marine biology lab exploded. What's the reef about? Climate change, ocean acidification. She's 10 years old and already knows more about environmental science than most adults. She's got this theory that if we can just get people to understand how connected everything is, how the reef affects the fish affect the food chain affects us, then maybe they'd care enough to change. Smart kid. Scary smart. Sometimes I look at her and wonder how someone like me ended up with someone like her. She's going to do amazing things someday. Change the world, probably. She learned to care from somewhere. That's you. Luke shook his head. That's all Sarah. She was the one who saw the best in everything. I'm just trying not to screw up what Sarah started. You're doing more than that. You're showing Mia what it means to show up for people. That's not nothing. The words settled into Luke's chest, warm and unexpected. He wasn't used to people seeing him clearly, wasn't used to being told he mattered beyond his ability to fix engines or pay bills on time. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not thinking I'm crazy for doing this. Everyone else would. Eleanor's smile was slight but genuine. Then it's good I'm not everyone else. By hour 3, the medication had hit Eleanor hard. She was pale, sweating, her breathing shallow. The nurse checked in twice, adjusting dosages, providing anti-nausea medication, assuring them both that this was normal, expected, manageable. Feels like dying, Eleanor whispered at one point. Feels like fighting, Luke corrected, gripping her hand when she reached for his. There's a difference. Tell me about your wife, Sarah, if it's not too painful. Luke hesitated. He didn't talk about Sarah much. It hurt too much, opened wounds that had barely scabbed over. But Eleanor's eyes were earnest, seeking distraction from her own suffering, and he found himself wanting to share. She was a kindergarten teacher, had this way with kids that was pure magic. They loved her instantly. She could calm the wildest tantrum with just a look and a hug. He smiled at the memory. We met at a community center fundraiser. She was running the kids' craft table, and I was fixing the broken heating system. She asked if I could help a 5-year-old whose toy car had lost a wheel, and I said sure. We spent 20 minutes together fixing this plastic car, and by the end of it, I was completely gone. Love at first sight? Love at first conversation. She talked about teaching like it was the most important job in the world. Made me see that fixing things, whether it's cars or toys or broken systems, matters. That being good at something practical isn't less valuable than being good at something prestigious. He paused. She made me feel like I was enough, exactly as I was. She sounds wonderful. She was. And then she was gone, and I had this tiny human who needed me to be both mother and father, and I had no idea how to do either one. His voice roughened. The first year was hell. Mia had colic, screamed for hours every night. I'd walk her around our apartment at 3 a.m., crying as hard as she was, begging Sarah to tell me what to do, begging her to come back. Eleanor's fingers tightened on his. But you made it through. Barely. Mrs. Chen helped. She'd already raised 4 kids. She'd hear Mia screaming through the walls and show up with formula or advice or just an extra pair of hands. She saved us, honestly. Taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. And now you're helping someone else, paying it forward. Something like that. By the time the infusion finished, Eleanor could barely stand. Luke supported her to his truck, her arm around his shoulders, moving slowly while she fought waves of nausea. Your Mercedes? She mumbled. Can't leave it. I'll come back for it tomorrow. Right now I'm getting you home. What's your address? She recited it, and Luke's eyebrows rose. West Hills, the most exclusive neighborhood in Portland. Of course. The drive took 20 minutes through winding roads lined with massive houses hidden behind gates and hedges. Eleanor's home was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, all clean lines and expensive taste, perched on a hillside with views of the city below. Jesus, Luke breathed. You live here alone? Mostly. I have a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, gardeners, a personal assistant who works remotely now that I'm sick. Eleanor fumbled with her keys. It's too big. My father built it for entertaining clients. I just live here because it's easier than selling. Inside was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than Luke's annual salary. But it felt cold, empty. A showcase, not a home. Bedroom? Luke asked, still supporting most of Eleanor's weight. Upstairs, first door on the left. He helped her up the curved staircase, down a hallway, into a master suite that was bigger than his entire apartment. The bed was enormous, dressed in white linens that probably cost a fortune. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A sitting area, a fireplace, an attached bathroom done in marble and brass. Eleanor collapsed onto the bed, still fully clothed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have to see me like this. Stop apologizing. Wear your pajamas. Second drawer, but Luke, I can manage, which is why you just tried to get into bed wearing jeans. Humor me. He found soft cotton pants and a t-shirt, left them on the bed. I'll wait outside while you change. Yell if you need help. 5 minutes later, Eleanor called out weakly, and Luke returned to find her changed but struggling with the blankets. He helped her settle in, found extra pillows to prop her up since lying flat made the nausea worse, filled a glass of water from the bathroom. Medication, Eleanor said. Bathroom counter, the white bottle. 2 pills. He brought them, watched her swallow them with tiny sips of water. I'm going to be sick, she said suddenly, and Luke grabbed the wastebasket just in time. He held her hair, what little there was under the beanie, while she retched, rubbed her back, murmured meaningless comfort. When the worst passed, he brought a damp washcloth, helped her clean up, got her settled again. This is humiliating, Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her face. You shouldn't have to do this. My daughter had stomach flu last winter, vomited for 3 days straight. This is nothing. He sat on the edge of the bed. Besides, this is what showing up looks like. It's not always pretty, but it's real. How are you real? How are you just here, doing this like it's normal? Because someone did it for me once, and because you needed help and I could give it. That's all there is to it, Eleanor. She closed her eyes, exhausted. Stay, she breathed. Please don't leave yet. I'm scared. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here. He pulled a chair from the sitting area to her bedside, settled in for the long haul. Eleanor's hand found his, weak but insistent, and he held on while she drifted into an uneasy sleep. Luke pulled out his phone, texted Mrs. Chen that he'd be late picking up Mia from school, asking if she could grab her instead. Mrs. Chen's response was immediate. Of course. She's fine. Take care of your friend. His friend. Was that what Eleanor was becoming? He barely knew her. 72 hours ago, he'd never heard her name. Now he was sitting in her bedroom, holding her hand while she slept off chemo, making promises he barely understood. But when he looked at her face, peaceful in sleep, the lines of pain temporarily smoothed, he didn't regret it, not even a little. His phone buzzed again. Mia. Mrs. Chen picked me up. She says you're helping your friend. Is she okay? Luke typed back. She's going to be. Home for dinner. Love you. Love you too, Dad. You're a good person. The words hit harder than they should have. Luke stared at his daughter's text, feeling the weight of it. He wanted to be good, wanted Mia to see him as someone worth admiring. Maybe that's what this was really about. Not just helping Eleanor, but proving to himself and his daughter that goodness still mattered in a world that often felt too hard and cold. Eleanor slept for 3 hours. When she woke, the worst of the nausea had passed, leaving her weak but clear-headed. You're still here, she said, blinking in the dimming afternoon light. Told you I would be. How are you feeling? Like I was hit by a truck, then the truck backed up and hit me again. But better than before. She struggled to sit up, and Luke helped adjust the pillows. What time is it? Almost 5. I need to head home soon. Mia's doing homework with Mrs. Chen, but I promised I'd be back for dinner. Of course, go. Thank you for today. For all of it. Eleanor paused. Luke, about the board meeting, I was serious. I need to look strong, healthy. I can't walk in there looking like this. She gestured at herself. They'll use it as proof I'm unfit. 3 weeks is a long time. This protocol might start working by then. Or it might make things worse. Dr. Patel said the first month is the hardest. She took a shaky breath. I need you to do something for me, something bigger than just driving me to appointments. Name it. I need you to be with me, publicly, as my partner. Luke stared at her. What? Hear me out. Harrington and the board, they're using my isolation against me. No family support, no personal relationships. It makes me look vulnerable, unstable. But if I have someone real standing beside me, it changes the narrative. Shows I'm not alone. Shows I'm still living my life, not just surviving. Eleanor, that's crazy. We barely know each other. I know, but it works. The public loves a love story, a billionaire heiress and a regular guy who showed up when she needed him most. That's gold. It would give me leverage, protection, make it harder for Harrington to paint me as weak. Luke stood, pacing to the window. You want me to lie, to pretend we're together. I want you to help me keep my company. And yes, that means some public appearances, some photos, letting people draw their own conclusions. Eleanor's voice was urgent now. I'll pay you $500,000 for 6 months. Just be by my side at key moments. Help me look strong. That's all I'm asking. 500,000? Eleanor, I can't take your money for pretending to care about you. Why not? You already care. I can see it. This just makes it official. And the money would help, wouldn't it? For Mia. For her education, for a better apartment, for all the things you worry about. Luke's jaw clenched. She'd gone straight for his weakest point, his daughter. The money would change everything. Mia's college fund, a real house, security he'd never been able to provide. I don't want to be bought, he said quietly. You're not being bought. You're being compensated for your time, for the work of standing beside someone fighting cancer, for the emotional labor of showing up. Eleanor's voice softened. Please, Luke, I'm not asking you to fall in love with me. I'm asking you to help me survive this fight on 2 fronts, medical and corporate. You said you wanted to help. Let me pay you for it. Luke turned to face her, seeing the desperation beneath the pragmatic businesswoman pitch. This wasn't about money for her either. It was about survival, about having one person in her corner when everyone else had left. One condition, he said finally. Anything. Mia comes first, always. If she needs me, if there's a school event, or she's sick, or she just needs her dad, that takes priority. I don't care about board meetings or photo ops. My daughter is my life. Of course, absolutely. I wouldn't ask you to choose. And we're honest with each other. This is an arrangement, fine, but no games, no manipulation. We're straight with each other about what this is. Deal. Eleanor extended her hand, businesslike even in her weakness. Partners? Luke crossed the room, took her hand, feeling the lightness of her bones, the tremor in her fingers. Partners. But Eleanor? I'm still going to show up because I want to, not because you're paying me. The money's for Mia. This, he squeezed her hand gently, this I do for free. Tears spilled down Eleanor's cheeks. Why are you so good? I'm not. I'm just a guy trying to do the right thing. He released her hand. I need to get home, but I'll be back tomorrow to check on you and get your car from the medical center. Text me if you need anything tonight. Luke, thank you for today, for saying yes, for all of it. He paused at the door. Get some rest. And Eleanor, we're going to beat this, both fights. I promise. Driving home through rush hour traffic, Luke's mind spun. $500,000. The number was incomprehensible, life-changing, and all he had to do was stand beside a dying woman and let people think he cared about her. The problem was, he realized with growing certainty, he was starting to care about her. Really care. And that made everything infinitely more complicated. Mrs. Chen met him at his apartment door, Mia visible behind her at the kitchen table, surrounded by homework. How is your friend? Mrs. Chen asked quietly, her weathered face kind. Fighting. She's a fighter. Good. The world needs more fighters. She patted his arm. Mia made stir-fry for dinner. She's quite the chef now. You've raised her well. After Mrs. Chen left, Luke joined Mia at the table, listening to her excited chatter about the coral reef project, about how her friend Zoe's move had been delayed, about the book she was reading. Dad? Mia said during a pause. Your friend, the sick one. Is she nice? Very nice. She's going through a really hard time, but she's brave. Braver than you? Luke smiled. Different kind of brave. She's fighting a battle she can't win with strength or hard work. She just has to endure. That's the hardest kind of brave, Mia said solemnly. Mrs. Chen says the hardest thing in the world is to keep going when everything hurts. Masa, Chen is very wise. Mia studied him for a long moment. You like her. Your friend. I do. That's okay, you know. To like someone. Mom would want you to be happy. The words from his 10-year-old daughter hit Luke like a physical blow. Baby, we're not. It's okay, Dad. Really, you're allowed to have friends. You're allowed to care about people. Mia's eyes, so much like Sarah's, were understanding beyond her years. You've been sad for a long time. It's nice to see you caring about something besides work and me. Luke pulled her into a hug, overwhelmed. When did you get so grown up? I've always been this grown up. You just noticed. That night, after Mia was asleep, Luke sat at his tiny kitchen table with a beer he wasn't drinking, staring at his phone. Eleanor had texted, "Made it through the night. Thank you again. My lawyer is drawing up the contract. We can review it together." A contract. Right. Because this was business, an arrangement, nothing more. So why did his chest feel tight at the thought of it? His phone rang. Eleanor. Hey, he answered. Shouldn't you be sleeping? Can't sleep. Too much to think about. She paused. Luke, I need to know you're sure about this arrangement. It's going to get complicated. The media will dig into your life. People will have opinions. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy. I'm sure, Eleanor. Are you? I think so. I don't want you to hate me when this is over. When it inevitably goes wrong. Why would it go wrong? Because everything in my life goes wrong eventually. It's what I do. I ruin things. Luke leaned back in his chair. Tell me one thing you've ruined. My relationship with James, my father's respect, my own health probably, from stress and overwork. You didn't ruin those things. James ruined himself by being a coward. Your father ruined your relationship by being impossible to please. And cancer isn't something you caused, it's something that happened to you. He softened his voice. Stop taking responsibility for things that aren't your fault. Easier said than done. Most things are, but try anyway. She laughed, the sound tired but genuine. You're very stubborn, Luke Carter. So I've been told. Now go to sleep before I drive back over there and make you. That's not a threat. That's a promise, isn't it? Damn right it is. Sleep, Eleanor. Good night, Luke. And thank you for everything. For being you. After she hung up, Luke sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, thinking about promises and arrangements and the strange, unexpected ways life could change in just a few days. He'd answered a wrong number. That was all. One moment of compassion in the middle of a terrible night. How had it turned into this? A contract, a partnership, a promise to stand beside someone while they fought impossible odds. But when he thought about Eleanor's face, the relief when he'd walked into her hospital room, the gratitude when he'd held her hair during the worst of the chemo, the desperate hope when she'd asked him to help her fight for her company, he knew he'd do it all again. Some people were worth showing up for, worth the complications and the questions and the uncertainty. Eleanor Vale was one of those people. He'd known it the moment he'd heard her voice on that 2 a.m. call, scared and alone and reaching out for help. And Luke Carter kept his promises. Even the ones that scared him. Even the ones that might break his heart. Even the ones that started with a wrong number and ended up changing everything. The contract arrived 3 days later via courier, a thick envelope of legal documents that Luke spread across his kitchen table after Mia had gone to bed. The language was dense, full of whereas clauses and stipulations, but the heart of it was simple. 6 months of public companionship in exchange for $500,000, paid in installments. There were confidentiality agreements, behavioral clauses, termination conditions. It read less like a relationship agreement and more like an employment contract, which Luke supposed it was. He signed it at midnight with a pen that had been chewed by Mia during homework, feeling like he was stepping off a cliff into unknown territory. The first public appearance came faster than he'd expected. Eleanor called him on Saturday morning, her voice stronger than it had been since the chemo. "There's a charity gala tonight. Vale Media is a major sponsor. I need to be there and I need you with me." Luke looked around his apartment, at the pile of laundry waiting to be folded, at Mia's art project spread across the coffee table. "Tonight? Eleanor, I don't even own a suit. I'm sending a stylist to your place at 2. He'll handle everything. And Luke, bring Mia if you want. There's a kids program during the dinner. She'd be well supervised, and maybe it's time she met me properly." After they hung up, Luke stood in his tiny living room feeling the weight of what he'd agreed to. A charity gala, photographers, Portland's elite, and him, a mechanic from the wrong side of town, pretending to be worthy of Eleanor Vale. "Dad?" Mia emerged from her bedroom, still in pajamas, her hair a wild tangle. "Who was that?" "Eleanor. My friend. The one I've been helping. Is she okay?" "She's better. She invited us to an event tonight, a fancy party. Would you want to come?" Mia's eyes went wide. "A fancy party? Like with dresses and everything?" "Yeah, baby. Like with dresses and everything." Her shriek of excitement was answer enough. The stylist arrived at exactly 2 p.m., a painfully hip man named Marcus who took one look at Luke and Mia's apartment and didn't blink. He'd brought garment bags, shoeboxes, a makeup kit that looked like it cost more than Luke's truck. "Ms. Vale has excellent taste," Marcus said, unzipping the first bag to reveal a charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than Luke's monthly rent. "She selected this herself, said you'd protest anything too flashy." She wasn't wrong. The suit was beautiful, but understated, perfectly tailored to measurements Eleanor must have guessed from their time together. The shirt was crisp white, the tie a subtle silver gray. "And for the princess," Marcus turned to Mia with a flourish, producing a midnight blue dress that made her gasp. "Ms. Vale said 10 years old, loves marine life, and deserves to feel like the smartest person in the room." The dress was perfect, age-appropriate but elegant, with subtle embroidery at the hem that, when Mia looked closer, revealed tiny octopuses and starfish worked into the design. "She did this for me?" Mia breathed. "She doesn't even know me." "Your dad talks about you constantly," Marcus said, winking at Luke. "Ms. Vale pays attention." 2 hours later, Luke barely recognized himself in the mirror. The suit transformed him from a mechanic into someone who could plausibly belong at a charity gala. Marcus had even tamed his perpetually messy hair into something resembling style. Mia looked like a completely different child. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant braid, her face glowing with excitement, the dress making her look older and somehow more herself at the same time. "Dad?" she whispered, staring at her reflection. "I look like Mom." Luke's throat tightened. She was right. Sarah had always had that same quality, the ability to be beautiful without trying, to command attention through sheer presence rather than decoration. "You look perfect," he managed. "Mom would be so proud." The car Eleanor sent was absurd. A black Mercedes with a driver who held the door open like they were visiting dignitaries. Mia couldn't stop giggling, pressing buttons to make the windows go up and down, marveling at the bottle of sparkling cider waiting in the center console with her name on a card. The gala was at the Portland Art Museum, the building lit up against the evening sky, red carpet stretching from the street to the entrance. Luke's stomach dropped when he saw the photographers, the crowd of well-dressed people, the security checking names against tablets. "I can't do this," he said to the driver. "This is insane." "Dad!" Mia's hand found his. "We can do anything together. Remember? That's what you always tell me." Right. His own words coming back to haunt him. The driver opened their door, and suddenly they were out on the street, flashbulbs popping, people turning to look. Luke kept his hand on Mia's shoulder, guiding her toward the entrance, trying to ignore the whispers, the curious stares. Luke Carter!" He turned to find Eleanor standing at the museum entrance, and his breath caught. She'd done something miraculous with what cancer had left her. The blue beanie was gone, replaced by an intricately wrapped silk scarf in deep emerald that somehow made her look regal rather than sick. Her dress was simple but stunning, long-sleeved to hide the IV bruises falling to her ankles. She'd gained just enough weight that her face looked less skeletal, and someone had worked magic with makeup to give her color, life. But it was her smile that transformed everything. Genuine, warm, reaching her eyes as she watched them approach. "You came," she said, and Luke heard the relief beneath the words. "I promised." Eleanor's gaze shifted to Mia, and something soft crossed her face. "And you must be the famous marine biologist in training." Mia, usually bold, went suddenly shy. "I'm Mia. My dad talks about you." "Does he? All good things, I hope." "He says you're brave, and that you're fighting really hard." Eleanor crouched down, ignoring the difficulty it caused her, putting herself at Mia's eye level. "Thank you for sharing your dad with me. I know he's very busy taking care of you, so it means a lot that you let him help me sometimes." "It's okay. Dad says showing up for people is important." Mia touched the embroidered octopuses on her dress. "Did you really pick this out for me?" "I did. Your dad mentioned you loved octopuses. Did you know they're one of my favorite animals too?" "Really?" Mia's face lit up. "Do you know they can solve puzzles and they have 3 hearts?" "I didn't know about the 3 hearts. That's amazing." Luke watched the exchange, something tight in his chest loosening. Eleanor had done this, had thought about his daughter, had chosen a dress that would make Mia feel seen, was now listening to octopus facts like they were the most fascinating thing in the world. This woman who supposedly didn't know how to care about people was doing a pretty damn good job of it. A handler appeared, a clipboard-wielding woman who informed them the children's program was starting soon. Mia looked torn between wanting to stay with Luke and wanting to join the other kids. "Go," Luke urged. "Have fun. I'll find you after dinner." "Okay? Dad? Eleanor? You both look really nice together." Then she was gone, swept into a group of children being led toward another wing of the museum. Eleanor straightened slowly, and Luke offered his arm without thinking. She took it, leaning more heavily than she probably wanted him to notice. "That's quite a daughter you have," she said as they moved toward the gala entrance. "She's the best thing I ever did. She thinks we look nice together. She's 10. She thinks everyone looks nice together." Eleanor's laugh was soft. "Fair enough. Ready to face the wolves? Do I have a choice?" "Not really, but I'll be right beside you. Just follow my lead, smile at the right people, and for God's sake, don't let Richard Harrington get you alone." "The board member trying to take your company?" "The very same. He'll be here, probably sharpening his knives as we speak." The museum's main hall had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, flower arrangements that probably cost more than Luke's monthly salary. Portland's wealthy and powerful filled the space, champagne glasses in hand, laughter echoing off the marble floors. And every single one of them turned to stare when Eleanor walked in on Luke's arm. The whispers started immediately. Luke didn't need to hear the words to know what people were saying. Who was he? Where had he come from? What was Eleanor Vale doing with someone so obviously beneath her station? "Ignore them," Eleanor murmured, her grip tightening on his arm. Let them wonder. It's good for my image, shows I'm still living my life. A photographer approached, asking for a photo. Eleanor smiled that public smile, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes, and Luke tried to look natural while cameras flashed. Ms. Vale, who's your date tonight? This is Luke Carter, Eleanor said smoothly. He's been an incredible support during a difficult time. Are you two together? We're here together tonight. That's what matters. It was a non-answer that would let people draw their own conclusions, brilliant and infuriating at once. They made their way through the crowd, Eleanor stopping to greet sponsors and board members, introducing Luke each time with that same careful vagueness. He shook hands, smiled, tried not to feel like an imposter in borrowed clothes. Then a man approached who made Eleanor's whole body tense. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Luke's truck, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Eleanor, the man said warmly, you look wonderful. We were all so worried when we heard about your health struggles. I'm managing, Richard. Thank you for your concern. Eleanor's voice was ice wrapped in politeness. Luke, this is Richard Harrington. He serves on Vale Media's board. Richard, this is Luke Carter. Harrington's handshake was calculated to intimidate, too firm, too long. Carter, what do you do? I fix things, Luke said simply. How wonderfully vague. Fix things for Eleanor, I assume. I fix cars. I'm a mechanic. The judgment in Harrington's expression was instant and undisguised. How practical. And how did you and Eleanor meet? Wrong number, Eleanor cut in. Luke answered his phone when he didn't have to. We've been friends ever since. Friends. Harrington's smile was knowing. How nice that you have someone to lean on during this challenging time. Speaking of which, how are you feeling? The board has been concerned about your ability to fulfill your duties given the aggressive nature of your treatment. I'm fine, Richard. More than capable of running my company. Of course. But we have to think about Vale Media's future, about succession planning, about what happens if, God forbid, your health takes a turn. His eyes flickered to Luke, dismissive. You understand, I'm sure, that sometimes love and business have to be kept separate. There's nothing to understand, Eleanor said coolly. I'll be at the board meeting on Thursday, as planned. My voting shares remain very much under my control. Now, if you'll excuse us, I see someone I need to speak with. She steered Luke away, her breathing slightly labored, spots of color high on her cheeks. That son of a bitch, she muttered, once they were out of earshot. Did you hear him? Practically measuring me for a coffin while concern trolling about the company's future. He's scared of you, Luke observed. People don't fight that hard to take something from someone unless they're afraid of what that person can do. Eleanor looked at him sharply. That's surprisingly insightful. I've dealt with guys like him before. Different context, same energy. They see weakness and they pounce. The trick is not showing weakness. Easier said than done when your body is actively betraying you. Luke guided her toward a quieter corner away from the crowd. You're doing fine. Better than fine. You walked in here looking like you own the place because you kind of do. And having me on your arm, it's working. I can see it in how people are looking at you differently, not with pity, with curiosity, with the understanding that you're still a force to be reckoned with. Is that what you are? My proof of life? I'm whatever you need me to be tonight. That was the deal. Eleanor studied his face for a long moment. Why doesn't this feel like a deal anymore? Before Luke could answer, dinner was announced. They found their assigned table, front and center as befitted Vale Media's sponsorship status, and settled in for 4 courses of food Luke couldn't identify and wine he was too nervous to drink much of. The people at their table were polite but probing. A venture capitalist and his wife who wanted to know all about Luke's background. A city councilwoman who seemed genuinely charmed by his everyman authenticity. A tech CEO who kept steering conversation back to Vale Media's digital strategy until Eleanor shut him down with surgical precision. Through it all, Luke watched Eleanor work. She was brilliant at this, deflecting personal questions, steering business talk away from her vulnerability, laughing at the right moments, touching his arm in ways that suggested intimacy without confirming anything. She'd created a performance that told a story. Successful woman, serious illness, unexpected connection with someone real. It was compelling because parts of it were true. During the speeches, something about arts funding and community impact, Eleanor leaned close and whispered, "You're doing great. I know this isn't your world, but you're handling it perfectly. I'm terrified I'm going to use the wrong fork." "There is no wrong fork. That's all made-up nonsense to make people feel inferior." She squeezed his hand under the table. "Thank you for this, for being here, for making me look like I have my life together when we both know it's falling apart." "It's not falling apart. You're fighting. There's a difference." Before she could respond, Harrington's voice cut through the ballroom. He'd somehow secured the microphone during the transition between speakers. "If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment," he said, his smile practiced and predatory. "I know this isn't on the program, but I wanted to take a moment to recognize someone very special to all of us. Eleanor Vale, could you stand?" Eleanor's hand tightened painfully on Luke's. "Bastard," she breathed, but she stood, pasting on a gracious smile. "Eleanor has been through so much these past months," Harrington continued, his voice dripping with false concern, "fighting an incredibly difficult illness while trying to maintain her responsibilities to Vale Media. We're all inspired by her courage." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we also recognize that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is accept help, accept that we can't do everything alone. That there are people ready and willing to carry the burden so we can focus on what's most important, our health, our recovery." The room had gone silent. Everyone understood what Harrington was really saying. "Step down, Eleanor. Let us take over while you die quietly." Eleanor's face was a mask, but Luke could see the fury beneath. This was a public ambush designed to make her look weak, to make any protest seem ungracious. Without thinking about the consequences, Luke stood. He had no microphone, no platform, but his voice carried in the sudden quiet. "Mr. Harrington is right about one thing," Luke said, every eye in the room turning to him. "Eleanor has been incredibly brave, but not just because she's fighting cancer. She's brave because she's doing it while men like him circle her company like vultures, using her illness as an excuse to take what she built." He looked directly at Harrington. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things for a living. And from where I'm standing, the only thing broken about Vale Media is the people trying to break it." The room erupted. Some people started clapping. Others looked scandalized. Harrington's face had gone purple. Luke sat down, his heart hammering, wondering if he'd just destroyed everything. Eleanor's hand found his under the table, squeezing hard. "You beautiful idiot," she whispered. "You just declared war on one of the most powerful men in Portland. He started it. He's going to make you pay for that. Let him try." The dinner broke up shortly after, the evening's polite veneer shattered by the confrontation. People approached their table in waves, some to congratulate Luke's boldness, others to warn Eleanor that she was playing with fire, a few to inform them both that they'd just made themselves targets. Through it all, Eleanor held her head high, gracious and composed, while Luke stood beside her wondering what the hell he'd just done. When they finally escaped to the museum's side entrance where their car waited, Eleanor sagged against him, the evening's toll finally showing. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," she said. "Probably both. Harrington's going to come after you now, after both of us. He'll dig into your life, look for anything he can use to discredit you, try to make our relationship look fake or opportunistic." "It is fake and opportunistic. We have a contract." "Yes, but nobody else knows that. And if Harrington finds out, if he can prove I paid you to be here," Eleanor's voice shook, "it would destroy everything, prove I'm exactly the desperate, manipulative person he's claiming I am." Luke turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me. What we have isn't fake. The contract is just paperwork. But you and me? This friendship? That's real. I showed up because I wanted to. I stood up to Harrington because he was attacking someone I care about, not because you're paying me. Because it was the right thing to do." "You care about me?" Eleanor's voice was small, uncertain. "Of course I do. You think I spend my free time in chemo wards for just anyone?" Tears spilled down her cheeks, destroying the careful makeup. "Nobody cares about me. Not really. They care about my money or my company or what I can do for them. But nobody just Cares? Well, I do. Get used to it. She laughed through the tears, and before Luke knew what was happening, she was hugging him. Not a polite social hug, but a real one, desperate and tight, like she was drowning and he was solid ground. He held her while she cried, not caring who might see, not caring about the arrangement or the contract or the complications. This woman needed someone. He could be that someone. It was that simple. I'm scared, she whispered against his shoulder. Harrington's going to come after us with everything he has. He'll find Mia, investigate you, twist whatever he finds into ammunition. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. I walked into this with my eyes open. Luke pulled back enough to meet her gaze. But you're right about one thing. Harrington's coming, so we need to be ready. The car ride home was quiet. Mia had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the kids' program and the late night. Eleanor sat beside Luke, staring out the window at the passing lights. Tell me about the board meeting, Luke said finally. What exactly happens there? Eleanor roused herself. Quarterly review, financial reports, and a vote on Harrington's proposal to restructure the executive committee, which is really a vote on whether I remain CEO or get kicked upstairs to some meaningless chairman position while he takes operational control. Can he win? With my shares? No. But if he can prove I'm unfit, either through my health or through some scandal, my voting proxy gets activated, and he wrote those proxy rules. So we make sure there's no scandal. We show up, united, strong. We make it clear that you're not alone, that you're not weak, that Vale Media is exactly where it should be, under your control. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we're overthinking this. Luke glanced at her. Harrington's counting on you being isolated, vulnerable. Every time we show up together, every time I stand beside you, we're proving him wrong. That's worth something. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Luke, when this is over, when the 6 months are up and the contract ends, what happens to us? The question hung in the air, weighted with implications neither of them was ready to examine. I don't know, Luke admitted. But that's a problem for future us. Right now, we focus on getting you through this. The cancer, the board, all of it, one day at a time. One day at a time, Eleanor echoed. I can do that. They dropped Eleanor at her mansion first. Luke walked her to the door, supporting her when she stumbled slightly on the steps. Thank you, she said. For tonight, for everything, for being you. Thank you for the suit. And for the dress for Mia. She'll remember this night for the rest of her life. Good. She deserves magical nights. Eleanor touched his cheek, a gesture so tender it made Luke's breath catch. You're a good man, Luke Carter, better than I deserve. You deserve good things, Eleanor. Start believing that. After she disappeared inside, Luke returned to the car where Mia was stirring awake. Dad? She mumbled. Did I dream the fancy party? Nope. All real. Eleanor's nice. I like her. Me too, baby. Are you going to marry her? Luke nearly drove off the road. What? No, we're just friends. Friends who look at each other like you hung the moon. I'm 10, Dad, not blind. It's complicated, Mia. Love usually is. That's what Mrs. Chen says. Luke pulled into their apartment complex, exhausted and overwhelmed. Who said anything about love? Nobody. But you should. Mia unbuckled her seatbelt, suddenly serious beyond her years. Mom would want you to be happy, and Eleanor needs someone, and you need someone. So maybe just think about it. After putting Mia to bed, Luke sat in his kitchen with his phone, scrolling through the photos Marcus had texted him from the gala. There he was, in an expensive suit he'd never wear again, standing beside a woman dying of cancer, pretending to be something he wasn't. Except in the photos, he didn't look like he was pretending. He looked like he was exactly where he belonged, standing beside Eleanor, protecting her, caring about her. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice performance tonight, Carter, but we both know you're out of your league. $2 million to walk away. Think about it. Think about your daughter and what that money could do for her future. This is a one-time offer. You have 48 hours to decide. It was unsigned, but Luke didn't need a signature to know who'd sent it. Harrington making his first move. $2 million. The number was staggering, life-changing. College for Mia, paid in full. A house. Security for the rest of their lives. All he had to do was walk away from Eleanor and admit their relationship was a sham. Luke stared at the message for a long time, thinking about Mia's words, about Eleanor crying in his arms, about the promise he'd made to show up, to not let her be alone. Then he deleted the message without responding and went to bed, his mind made up. Some things weren't for sale, some promises couldn't be broken, and some people were worth standing beside no matter what it cost. Eleanor Vale was one of those people, and Luke Carter wasn't going anywhere. Luke didn't tell Eleanor about Harrington's offer. Not when he picked her up for her next chemo session on Tuesday, not during the 4 brutal hours of watching poison drip into her veins, not even when she asked why he seemed distracted. Some battles you fought alone, and this was his. Harrington wanted him to think about Mia, about what $2 million could buy. The problem was, Luke had thought about it. He'd thought about it until dawn broke over Portland, turning his kitchen gray with morning light. And every time he imagined taking that money, walking away, leaving Eleanor to face Harrington and the cancer alone, he felt sick in a way that had nothing to do with exhaustion. So he'd made his choice. Now he just had to live with the consequences. Those consequences started arriving on Wednesday morning. Luke was under a Honda Civic at Martinez Auto Shop, his hands slick with transmission fluid, when Carlos appeared beside the lift. "Boss, there's some guy here to see you." She heard him. "Says it's important." Luke rolled out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag that would never come clean. "Tell him I'm working. He can make an appointment." "Already tried. He's not taking no for an answer. Says he's a journalist." Luke's stomach dropped. He'd known this was coming, the media attention, the scrutiny, but he'd hoped for more time. "Give me 5 minutes." The journalist was waiting in the shop's tiny office, a thin man in his 30s with sharp eyes and a recorder already sitting on the desk between them. He introduced himself as Trevor Walsh from the Portland Tribune. "Mr. Carter, I'm doing a piece on Eleanor Vale and her relationship with you. Mind if I ask a few questions?" "I'm working. Make it quick." Walsh smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "How did you and Ms. Vale meet?" "Wrong number. She called me by accident. We became friends." "Friends? Is that what you'd call it? Because the photos from Saturday's gala suggest something more intimate." Luke crossed his arms. "Eleanor's going through a difficult time. I'm helping her. That's all you need to know." "Is she paying you? For your time, your companionship?" The question hit like a punch. Luke kept his face neutral. "Eleanor's my friend. Friends help each other." "Friends who sign contracts?" Walsh pulled out a folder and Luke's blood ran cold. Inside were copies, blurry but readable, of parts of their agreement. The dollar amounts were highlighted. "I have sources that say you and Ms. Vale have a financial arrangement, that you're essentially an employee posing as a romantic partner to make her look more stable to the board." Luke's mind raced. How had Walsh gotten this? The contract was confidential, locked in Eleanor's lawyer's office. Unless someone with access had leaked it, unless Harrington had connections Luke hadn't anticipated. "I'm not discussing my personal relationship with Eleanor in some tabloid hit piece," Luke said carefully. "If you've got questions about Vale Media's business practices, take them to their PR department. This isn't about business, Mr. Carter. This is about deception, about a dying woman so desperate to maintain control of her company that she hired someone to play her boyfriend. That's a story the public deserves to know." "The public doesn't deserve anything except to mind their own business. Eleanor's fighting cancer. She's fighting to keep what's hers. And yeah, I'm standing beside her while she does it. If that offends you or your readers, I don't know what to tell you." "So you're not denying the financial arrangement?" "I'm denying that you have any right to judge how 2 adults choose to support each other through a crisis. Now get out of my shop before I throw you out." Walsh stood slowly, gathering his folder. "The story is running tomorrow, Mr. Carter, with or without your cooperation. If you want to get ahead of it, now's your chance. I've got nothing to say to you, but I'll tell you something off the record." Luke stepped closer, using his height advantage. "Eleanor Vale is one of the strongest people I've ever met. She's fighting impossible odds with more grace and courage than you'll ever understand. And if you or anyone else tries to tear her down while she's fighting for her life, you'll have to go through me first. Are we clear? Walsh's smile was knowing. Crystal clear. Thanks for your time, Mr. Carter. After he left, Luke immediately called Eleanor. She answered on the second ring, her voice tired. They know, Luke said without preamble. A journalist just left the shop. He has copies of our contract. He's running a story tomorrow about you paying me. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, Harrington? Has to be. Nobody else would benefit from this getting out. Luke, I'm so sorry. I should have anticipated this, should have protected you better. Stop apologizing and tell me what we do. How do we handle this? He could hear Eleanor thinking, her business mind working through scenarios. We own it. We tell the truth before he can twist it. The truth that you hired me? The truth that I needed help and you provided it. That yes, there's a contract because I'm not the kind of person who asks for charity and you're not the kind of person who accepts it. That what started as an arrangement became real friendship. We control the narrative, Luke. That's the only way to win this. What about the board meeting tomorrow? Oh, Harrington's counting on this story to destroy me right before the vote. Show up looking like a gold digger, me looking like a desperate fool. It's brilliant strategy, actually. I'd admire it if it wasn't aimed at me. Luke leaned against the desk, exhaustion washing over him. I should take his offer. Walk away. Let you tell the board I was a mistake, that it's over. At least then you'd look like you came to your senses. No. Eleanor's voice was sharp. Absolutely not. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you gone so I look alone and vulnerable. We stick together, Luke. That was the deal. The deal's about to make both of us look like liars and frauds. So what? Let them think what they want. The people who matter will understand. The rest can go to hell. She paused. Unless you want out. If this is too much, if you want to protect Mia from the fallout, I understand. I'll release you from the contract, give you the full amount anyway. I don't want your money, Eleanor. I never did. Then what do you want? Luke closed his eyes, searching for words that wouldn't complicate everything further. I want you to be okay. I want you to keep your company. I want to help you fight. That's all I've ever wanted. Even if it costs you? Even then, Eleanor's breath caught. You're a better person than I deserve, Luke Carter. Stop saying that. You deserve good things. When are you going to believe it? Maybe when someone like you keeps showing up despite every reason not to. Her voice softened. Come over tonight, after Mia's in bed. We need to prepare for tomorrow. Figure out exactly what we're going to say when the board comes for us. Luke arrived at Eleanor's mansion at 9:30, after Mia had fallen asleep to a documentary about deep-sea creatures, after he'd triple-checked that Mrs. Chen was available for tomorrow's emergency pickup, after he'd sat in his truck outside Eleanor's gate wondering what the hell he was doing. Eleanor answered the door herself, wrapped in a cashmere throw, looking impossibly small. She'd lost more weight since the new protocol started. Her cheekbones were sharp enough to cut glass, her eyes huge in her thin face. But she was standing, fighting, refusing to give up. Come in, she said. I made coffee, or tried to. Turns out chemo kills your taste buds, and I have no idea if it's terrible. The coffee was fine. They sat in her living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, and for a few minutes neither spoke. Just two people holding warm mugs, gathering strength for the battles ahead. Tell me about the board, Luke said finally. Who's on our side? Honestly, maybe 3 people out of 12. The rest are either with Harrington or too scared to oppose him. Eleanor set down her mug. He's been very careful, very strategic, never attacking me directly, always hiding behind concern for the company, for my health, for the shareholders. He's made it politically dangerous to support me. What about the press conference idea? Getting ahead of the story? My PR team drafted a statement. Basic facts. We met, we connected, yes, there's a formal agreement because that's how I operate, but the friendship is real. It won't stop the gossip, but it might blunt the worst of it. When does it go out? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., before the Tribune piece hits. Eleanor looked at him searchingly. Last chance, Luke. Once that statement goes public, you're in this completely. Your name, your reputation, Mia's privacy, all of it becomes fair game. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Eleanor, you need to prepare for the possibility that this doesn't work, that Harrington has more ammunition we don't know about. What's your backup plan? I don't have one. It's fight or lose everything. Those are my options. She laughed without humor. Funny, isn't it? I'm fighting to keep control of a company I might not live long enough to run. Sometimes I wonder why I'm doing this at all. Because it's yours. Because you earned it. Because giving up isn't who you are. Who am I, Luke, really? Strip away the company, the money, the title. Who's left? The question hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Luke set down his coffee and moved to sit beside her on the couch. You're someone who reached out for help when she needed it. Someone who fights even when the odds are impossible. Someone who thought about my daughter when picking out a dress. Who listens to octopus facts like they matter. Who's trying so damn hard to do right by the people counting on her. He met her eyes. You're Eleanor Vale, and that's more than enough. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so tired, Luke. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending I'm not terrified every single second. Then stop pretending. Not with me. You don't have to be strong right now. Something broke in Eleanor then. Some wall she'd been holding up through sheer force of will. She leaned into him, and Luke wrapped his arms around her while she cried. Really cried, the kind of deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place beyond words. She cried for her dying body, for the company being ripped away, for the loneliness that had defined her life, for the father who'd never loved her right, for the future she might not have. Luke held her through all of it, one hand in her hair, murmuring comfort that didn't fix anything, but maybe helped anyway. When the storm finally passed, Eleanor stayed pressed against his chest, exhausted. I'm getting your shirt wet, she mumbled. Don't care. I'm a mess. You're human. There's a difference. She pulled back enough to look at him, her face blotchy and raw. How are you real? How is this real? I ask myself the same thing. Wrong number, right person. Stranger things have happened. Not to me. Nothing this good ever happens to me. Luke brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Maybe that's changing. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither wanted to name. Eleanor's eyes dropped to his mouth, and Luke's heart kicked hard against his ribs. It would be so easy. Lean forward 6 inches, close the gap. Stop pretending this was just friendship or an arrangement or anything other than what it was becoming. But Mia's voice echoed in his head. You look at each other like you hung the moon. And Luke pulled back. Not because he didn't want to kiss Eleanor, because he wanted it too much. Because crossing that line would complicate everything beyond repair. Because she was dying and he was being paid and nothing about this situation was simple enough for more. It's late, he said, his voice rougher than intended. You need rest before tomorrow. Disappointment flickered across Eleanor's face before she masked it. Right. Tomorrow. The battle begins. Luke stood, putting necessary distance between them. I'll pick you up at 1:30. That gives us time to prep before the 2 o'clock meeting. Luke? Eleanor stood too, pulling the throw tighter around herself. Thank you. For tonight. For holding me. For not running away screaming. Where would I run? We're in this together now. Together, Eleanor repeated softly. I like the sound of that. After Luke left, Eleanor stood at her window watching his taillights disappear down the long driveway. Her chest ached where his arms had been, her body remembering the warmth, the safety, the rightness of being held. She'd almost kissed him. Would have, if he hadn't pulled away first. And she didn't know whether to be grateful or devastated that he'd shown more sense than her. Because the truth was undeniable now, terrifying and impossible to ignore. She was falling for Luke Carter. Maybe had been since he'd walked into her hospital room at 2 a.m. Maybe it had started the moment he'd promised she wouldn't die alone. Maybe it was simply that kindness, when you'd been starved of it long enough, felt like falling in love. But it didn't matter what she felt. She was dying. He was being paid. And tomorrow, the world would learn their relationship was a lie, even though it had stopped being 1 week ago. Eleanor picked up her phone, scrolling through the PR statement one more time. The words were perfect, carefully crafted to tell just enough truth to be believable. But they couldn't capture the real story. That a wrong number had given her something she'd never had before. Someone who showed up not for her money or her name or what she could do for them, but simply because she'd asked. That was worth fighting for, even if the fight destroyed them both. Thursday morning broke cold and gray, matching Luke's mood. The PR statement had gone live at 6 a.m. By 7, his phone was exploding with texts. Carlos asking what the hell was going on. Mrs. Chen sending support and offering to keep Mia as long as needed. Journalists requesting interviews. Unknown numbers that were probably more of Harrington's people, testing his resolve. He ignored them all except Mrs. Chen, confirming she'd get Mia from school and keep her until late. He couldn't have his daughter caught up in whatever media circus was about to unfold. The Tribune story hit at 8, and it was worse than Luke had feared. Walsh had written it like an exposé, painting Eleanor as a desperate heiress clinging to power through manipulation. Luke as either a gold digger or a fool. The contract details were laid out in ugly precision. The dollar amounts, the timeline, the termination clauses. Everything designed to make their relationship look like exactly what it was, a business transaction. Except Walsh had missed the one detail that mattered. Somewhere between the contract signing and now, it had become real. Luke's phone rang. Eleanor. "Don't read it," she said immediately. "The Tribune piece. Don't torture yourself." "Too late. It's bad, Eleanor." "I know. My PR team is already drafting responses. But Luke, the board meeting is in 5 hours. I need you focused. Can you do that?" Could he? Luke looked around his apartment, at Mia's homework scattered on the table, at the photo of Sarah on the bookshelf, at the life he'd built from nothing after losing everything. This world Eleanor was pulling him into, of media scrutiny and corporate warfare and public judgment, it wasn't his world. He was a mechanic who fixed broken cars and raised his daughter and tried to be good. But Eleanor needed him, and he'd made a promise. "I'll be there at 1:30, he said. "We'll face them together." "Together," Eleanor echoed, and Luke heard the relief in her voice. "Thank you. For not running, for staying even when every rational reason says you should go. Maybe I'm not rational about you." The words slipped out before Luke could stop them. Silence filled the line, heavy with everything they weren't saying. "Luke," Eleanor started. "See you at 1:30. He hung up before either of them could make this more complicated. Vale Tower. Downtown was a monument to corporate power, all steel and glass reaching toward the sky like a middle finger to the clouds. Luke had driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. Now, walking through the marble lobby toward the private elevators, he felt its weight. This was Eleanor's world. Money and influence and power games he barely understood. Eleanor was waiting by the elevators, flanked by 2 assistants who looked like they hadn't slept. She dressed for battle. A navy suit that hung slightly off her thin frame, her head wrapped in an elegant scarf, makeup doing its best to hide the evidence of illness. She looked small and fierce and terrified. "Luke." She dismissed the assistants with a gesture and took his arm. "Ready?" "No, but I'm here anyway." "That's all I need." They stepped into the elevator, and Eleanor pressed the button for the 40th floor. As they rose, she briefed him quickly. "The board meets in the main conference room. There's a gallery where you can watch. I need you visible, Luke. I need them to see you're still here, that the Tribune piece didn't scare you off." "What about Harrington?" "Oh, he'll be there. Probably already working the room, showing everyone the article, whispering about my poor judgment and declining mental state." Eleanor's voice was bitter. "But I've got the votes. Barely. As long as I can stand up there and prove I'm capable, we win." The elevator doors opened onto a hushed corridor. Through the glass walls of the conference room ahead, Luke could see board members gathering, expensive suits, tablets, and phones, the atmosphere of people about to decide someone's fate. Richard Harrington stood near the head of the table, his silver hair catching the light, his expression confident. When he saw Eleanor and Luke emerge from the elevator, his smile sharpened. "Eleanor?" he called out warmly, as if they were old friends. "And Mr. Carter, how brave of you both to show up after this morning's revelations." Eleanor's grip on Luke's arm tightened, but her voice remained level. "Richard, shall we get started? I know everyone's time is valuable." "Of course." But first, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. The Tribune piece raises serious questions about your judgment, Eleanor. Hiring someone to pose as your romantic partner? That's not the behavior of someone fit to run a multi-billion-dollar company. I didn't hire anyone to pose as anything. Luke is my friend. Yes, we have a formal agreement because I'm dying and I needed someone reliable, someone who wouldn't disappear the way everyone else has. Eleanor's voice carried across the room. If you've got a problem with me finding support during the hardest time of my life, Richard, that says more about you than me. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Harrington's smile never wavered. Support is one thing, deception is another. You're asking this board to trust your leadership while conducting your personal life through contracts and paid companionship. How are we supposed to believe anything you say? Because I've never lied to this board. Because Vale Media's numbers speak for themselves. Because I've spent every day of the last 3 years building on my father's legacy, while you've spent every day trying to tear me down. Eleanor released Luke's arm, stepping forward. Call the vote, Richard. Let's settle this. As you wish. Harrington gestured to the board secretary. We'll convene in 5 minutes. Mr. Carter, I believe Eleanor mentioned you'd be observing from the gallery? Luke looked at Eleanor, who nodded slightly. He wanted to stay beside her, wanted to be close enough to catch her if she fell, but this was her fight. All he could do was bear witness. The gallery was a raised section along one wall, separated from the board table by glass. Luke took a seat, watching Eleanor settle at the head of the table, her back straight despite the pain he knew she was in. She looked impossibly small among all these powerful people, impossibly fragile. But when she started speaking, there was nothing fragile about her voice. Let's make this simple, Eleanor said. Harrington has proposed a restructure that would strip me of operational authority while I focus on my health. It sounds reasonable, compassionate even. But let's call it what it really is, a coup. She pulled up a presentation on the screens around the room. These are Vale Media's numbers under my leadership. Revenue up 18%. Digital subscriptions up 43%. 3 major investigative journalism awards, 2 acquisitions that expanded our reach into new markets. We're stronger now than we've ever been. Numbers that will plummet once investors learn about your situation. Harrington's voice was smooth. Your health issues, your questionable personal decisions. The market responds to stability, Eleanor, and right now you represent chaos. I represent truth, something you've never been comfortable with. Eleanor advanced to the next slide. Let's talk about your proposal, Richard, the restructure that puts you as interim CEO. Funny thing, I had my team dig into what happens after I'm declared unfit or I die. Turns out, there's a provision buried in the bylaws that gives the interim CEO first right to purchase my shares at a discount, a provision you helped draft 10 years ago. The room went silent. Several board members turned to look at Harrington, whose expression had finally cracked. That's a standard succession clause, he said tightly. Standard for someone planning a takeover, maybe. You've been positioning for this for years, Richard, waiting for me to be weak enough to strike? Well, congratulations. I'm weak. I'm sick. I'm dying. Eleanor's voice broke slightly, then strengthened. But I'm not dead yet, and I'm not handing over my father's company to someone who sees my cancer as a business opportunity. This is absurd, Harrington stood. You're paranoid and unwell. This is exactly why we need new leadership. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, clear enough to see you for what you are. Eleanor turned to the board. I'm asking you to reject Harrington's proposal. Not for me, for Vale Media, for the journalists who depend on us to tell the truth, for the legacy my father built. I'm sick, yes, but I'm still capable, still fighting, and I'm asking you to let me keep fighting. Board members exchanged glances. A woman Luke didn't recognize spoke up. Eleanor, we all admire your courage, but Richard raises valid concerns. The Tribune article, the contract with Mr. Carter, it doesn't inspire confidence. Because I hired someone to help me? Because I needed support and found it in an unexpected place? Eleanor's laugh was sharp. Half of you have personal assistants who manage your entire lives. You have drivers and chefs and trainers and therapists. I have Luke. The only difference is I was honest about needing help instead of pretending I could do everything alone. From the gallery, Luke watched the board members' faces. Some were sympathetic, others uncertain. A few clearly sided with Harrington. This could go either way. Then Harrington played his final card. Eleanor, I'm truly sorry to do this, but the board needs to see exactly how impaired your judgment has become. He nodded to an assistant who pulled up new images on the screens. Photos of Luke and Eleanor at the gala, but not the polite public photos. These were different. Intimate moments captured when they thought no one was watching. Luke's hand on the small of Eleanor's back. Eleanor leaning into him, her face unguarded. A moment outside when she'd hugged him, desperate and real. These were taken Saturday night, Harrington continued. They show what we all suspected. Mr. Carter isn't just hired help. You've developed genuine feelings for him. A man you barely know, a mechanic from the wrong side of town who's being paid $500,000 to stand beside you. This is the judgment of someone fit to run Vale Media? This is stability? Eleanor's face had gone white. Those photos exposed something private, something real. They made her look exactly like what Harrington was claiming, desperate, lonely, grasping at connection wherever she could find it. Luke was out of his seat before he knew he was moving. He didn't care about protocol or rules or the fact that he wasn't supposed to be part of this meeting. He walked straight through the conference room doors, past the startled secretary, right up to the table where Eleanor sat looking shattered. You want to question her judgment? Luke's voice carried across the room. Fine. Let's talk about judgment. Eleanor's judgment saved Vale Media from 3 hostile takeover attempts in 2 years. Her judgment launched a digital platform that's now the company's primary revenue source. Her judgment put investigative journalism back at the center of what you do, winning awards and actually making a difference in people's lives. Mr. Carter, this is a closed meeting, Harrington started. I don't care. You brought me into this when you decided to use me as proof Eleanor's unfit, so let me tell you what I see. Luke looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. I see a woman fighting cancer with more courage than most people have in their entire healthy lives. I see someone who refuses to quit even when everyone's telling her to step down and die quietly. Yeah, she hired me, because everyone else abandoned her. Her fiancé left, her so-called friends disappeared, and you, he pointed at Harrington, you started circling like a shark the moment you smelled blood in the water. This is highly inappropriate. Harrington's face had gone red. Security, let him speak. The command came from Eleanor, who'd found her voice again. Luke has as much right to defend me as you have to attack me, Richard. Luke moved to stand beside Eleanor's chair, his hand finding her shoulder. You're right about one thing, Harrington. Eleanor has feelings for me, real ones. And yeah, I've got feelings for her too. That wasn't part of the contract. That wasn't something either of us planned. It just happened because that's what happens when 2 people show up for each other through the worst things life can throw at them. He could feel Eleanor trembling under his hand, could sense her tears, even though he wasn't looking at her. But those feelings don't make her weak, Luke continued. They make her human. And I'll tell you something else. I'd rather have a CEO who's brave enough to be human, to ask for help, to admit she's scared, than one who pretends to be invincible while backstabbing everyone around him. He looked directly at Harrington. Vale Media doesn't need someone perfect. It needs someone real. Someone who understands that truth and integrity matter more than profits and power plays. That's Eleanor. That's who she's always been. The room was dead silent. Luke felt exposed, raw, like he'd just stripped bare in front of strangers. But he didn't care. Because Eleanor needed him, and he'd promised. Always show up. That's what mattered. Eleanor stood slowly, her hand covering Luke's on her shoulder. Thank you, she whispered, then raised her voice to address the board. Call the vote, Richard. Let's end this. The vote took less than 5 minutes. When it was over, Eleanor had won by exactly 2 votes, the slimmest possible margin, but a victory nonetheless. Harrington would remain on the board, but his proposal was dead. Vale Media stayed under Eleanor's control. For now. As board members filed out, some offering congratulations, others avoiding eye contact, Eleanor swayed on her feet. Luke caught her immediately, supporting her weight. I've got you, he murmured. Let's get you out of here. They made it to Eleanor's office 3 doors down before her legs gave out completely. Luke got her to the couch, her breathing shallow and rapid, her skin clammy. Eleanor, talk to me, What do you need? Medication, desk drawer, blue bottle. He found it, helped her take 2 pills with water from the mini fridge. Then he just held her while she shook, the adrenaline and exertion catching up with her failing body. We won, she breathed. Luke, we actually won. You won. I just showed up. You did more than show up. You told them the truth. Eleanor pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Did you mean it? What you said in there, about having feelings for me? Luke's heart hammered. This was the moment, the line they'd been dancing around for weeks. He could deflect, make a joke, keep things safely in the realm of friendship and contracts, or he could tell her the truth. Yeah, he said quietly, I meant it. I don't know when it happened or how, but somewhere between that first phone call and now you became important to me. Really important. Luke, I'm dying. I know. This can't go anywhere. There's no future here, just however long I have left. I know that too. Then why? Her voice broke. Why would you let yourself care about someone who's not going to be here? Luke cupped her face in his hands, gentle but sure. Because you're here now. Because every moment matters, even the hard ones. Because you're worth it, Eleanor Vale, even if we only get a little time. He paused, his thumb brushing away a tear. And because I tried not to care about you and I failed completely, so we might as well stop pretending. Eleanor's laugh was watery. This is the worst idea ever. Probably. We're going to get hurt. Definitely. I'm still dying. I'm still here. She kissed him then, closing the last inches between them, her lips soft and desperate and real. Luke kissed her back, tasting salt from her tears, feeling her hands fist in his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. It wasn't a contract kiss or a performance for anyone's benefit. It was just them, finally honest, finally real. When they broke apart, both breathless, Eleanor pressed her forehead to his. What are we doing? She whispered. I have no idea, but we're doing it together. Together, Eleanor repeated, and this time it sounded like a promise. Outside the office windows, Portland spread out below them, indifferent to their small drama. The world kept turning. Harrington was already plotting his next move. The cancer was still there, still winning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights. But right now, in this moment, they had each other. And for 2 people who'd started with a wrong number and a desperate plea at 2 a.m, that was everything. They stayed in Eleanor's office until the sky outside turned from gray to deep purple, neither willing to break the spell of what had just happened. Luke sat on the couch with Eleanor curled against him, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her like he could protect her from everything coming. They didn't talk much. Sometimes silence said more than words ever could, and right now the silence between them was full of all the things they'd been too scared to admit before. Finally, Eleanor stirred. I need to tell Mia about us, about what this is becoming. Luke's chest tightened, his daughter, the one person he'd been trying to protect from all of this. Eleanor, she's 10. This is complicated enough for adults to understand. She already knows, Luke. Kids always know. And she deserves honesty from us, especially if... Eleanor didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. If she was going to be part of their lives, however briefly, Mia deserved to understand why. Okay, Luke said quietly, but we do it together, and we're honest with her about everything. The cancer, the time we might not have, all of it. Eleanor nodded against his chest. Together. They picked up Mia from Mrs. Chen's apartment at 7:30. Their neighbor took one look at them. Luke's rumpled shirt, Eleanor's makeup slightly smudged, the way they stood just a little too close, and smiled knowingly. I'll send Mia right out, Mrs. Chen said. And Luke? Sometimes the bravest thing we do is let ourselves be happy, even when we're scared. Remember that. In the car, Mia chattered about her day, about the math test she'd aced, about how Zoe's family had decided not to move after all. But Luke could see her watching them in the rearview mirror, her sharp eyes noting every glance between Luke and Eleanor, every small touch. When they pulled up to Eleanor's mansion instead of their apartment, Mia went quiet. Are we staying here? She asked carefully. Just for dinner, Eleanor said, turning in her seat to look at Mia. And to talk. that's okay with you. About what? About us. Your dad and me. About some things that are happening that we want you to understand. Mia looked between them, her expression far too mature for 10 years old. Okay, but can I see your house first? Dad says it's really big. Inside, Eleanor gave Mia a tour while Luke ordered pizza. Something normal, something that felt less like a life-changing conversation and more like just dinner. Mia was appropriately awed by the size of everything, the art on the walls, the pool outside that glowed blue in the darkness. But Luke noticed she was most interested in the small things, the books on Eleanor's nightstand, the photos in silver frames, the cozy reading nook by the window where Eleanor admitted she spent most of her time. Do you live here all alone? Mia asked as they returned downstairs. Mostly. It's too big for one person, really. Sometimes it feels more like a museum than a home. That sounds lonely. Eleanor's smile was sad. It is sometimes, but less so lately, thanks to your dad. They ate pizza at Eleanor's massive dining table, and the absurdity of it, greasy cardboard boxes on a table that probably cost more than Luke's truck, 3 people rattling around in a space meant for 20, somehow made everything feel more real. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Eleanor and Luke sat on the couch, and Mia curled up in one of the oversized chairs watching them with those 2 knowing eyes. Mia, Luke started, you know Eleanor's been sick. That's why I've been spending so much time with her. She has cancer, Mia said matter-of-factly. Like Grandma had. Eleanor flinched slightly but nodded. That's right. I have pancreatic cancer. It's very serious. Are you going to die? The question, so direct and childlike, hung in the air. Luke wanted to deflect, to soften it, but they'd promised honesty. Yes, Eleanor said quietly. Probably. The doctors are doing everything they can, but this kind of cancer, it's hard to beat. How long? We don't know exactly. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe longer if we're lucky. Mia processed this, her face thoughtful. That's why you needed my dad. Because you were scared. Yes. I called his phone by accident one night when I was in the hospital and terrified. And he showed up even though he didn't know me. He's been showing up ever since. Because that's what Dad does. He shows up for people. Mia looked at Luke. But it's more than that now, isn't it? You like her. Like really like her. Luke glanced at Eleanor, then back at his daughter. Yeah, baby, I do. I know it's complicated and scary and probably not what you expected, but Eleanor's become really important to me. To both of us, I hope. Are you going to marry her? The question caught Luke off guard. We haven't talked about... I don't know, Eleanor interrupted gently. We're taking things one day at a time. But Mia, I want you to know that I care about your dad very much. And I think you're pretty amazing too. If you're okay with me being around more, spending time with you both, I'd really like that. Mia was quiet for a long moment, and Luke could practically see the wheels turning in her head. His brilliant, perceptive daughter, weighing this new reality against everything she'd known before. Mom died, Mia said finally. And it really hurt. Like the worst thing ever. And if you die too, Eleanor, it's going to hurt Dad. And me. If I let myself care about you. So I need to know, are you worth it? Is the time we get with you worth how much it's going to hurt when you're gone? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I'm worth it, Mia. But I promise you this. If you let me into your life, I'll make every single day count. I'll show up for you the way your dad's shown up for me. I'll listen to all your octopus facts and help with your homework and be there for whatever you need. I can't promise forever, but I can promise that the time we have will matter. Mia looked at Luke. What do you think, Dad? I think, Luke said carefully, that nothing in life is guaranteed. Not for any of us. Your mom taught me that. And I think Eleanor's right. It's going to hurt when we lose her. But baby, the alternative is not letting her in at all. Not having these months or weeks or however long we get. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather have something beautiful and painful than nothing at all. Like Mom, Mia said softly. You'd rather have had her for the time you did than never met her at all. Exactly like that. Mia stood up, walked over to Eleanor, and studied her face carefully. Then, with a solemnity that broke Luke's heart, she held out her hand. "Okay," she said, "you can be part of our family, but you have to promise that if you're going to leave anyway, you'll at least make it worth remembering." Eleanor took Mia's small hand, tears streaming down her face. "I promise, cross my heart. Also, I'm going to tell you a lot of ocean facts. That's non-negotiable." Eleanor laughed through her tears. "I'm counting on it." Mia climbed onto the couch between them, and suddenly they were a unit. Three people who'd found each other through the strangest circumstances, choosing to be family, even though time was working against them. Luke pulled them both close, feeling Eleanor shake with silent tears, feeling Mia's small body pressed against his side, and thought maybe this was what grace looked like. Not perfection, not easy answers, just people showing up for each other when it mattered most. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Luke would take Mia to school, work a full day at the shop, then spend evenings at Eleanor's mansion. Sometimes Mia came along, doing homework at the dining table while Eleanor worked on her laptop and Luke fixed whatever needed fixing around the house. Other times, when Eleanor was too sick from chemo, Luke came alone after Mia was asleep, holding Eleanor through the worst of it, learning the particular cruelty of watching someone you loved fight a battle they couldn't win. The media eventually lost interest, moving on to newer scandals. Harrington stayed quiet, licking his wounds from the board meeting defeat, but Luke knew he was still out there, still planning. The contract still existed, money still transferred into Luke's account in monthly installments, but somewhere along the way it had stopped being about the arrangement and started being about something neither of them had words for. 3 weeks after the board meeting, on a rare sunny December day, Eleanor called Luke at the shop with an unusual request. "Take me somewhere," she said. "Somewhere that matters to you. I want to see your world, not just show you mine." So Luke took her to places he'd never shared with anyone since Sarah died. The community center where he'd met his wife, now running an after-school program that Mia attended twice a week. The tiny Mexican restaurant where he and Sarah had their first date, still serving the same incredible tacos. The bench by the river where he'd proposed, overlooking the water, the city skyline in the distance. "I come here sometimes," Luke admitted as they sat on the bench, Eleanor bundled in a thick coat, a blanket across her lap. "When everything feels too heavy, when I need to remember why I keep going." "Sarah?" Eleanor asked. "Yeah. This was her favorite spot. She said you could see the whole city from here, all its possibilities. She was good at seeing possibilities in things." He paused. "I think she'd like you. Even though I'm stealing time with you that should have been hers?" "You're not stealing anything. Sarah's gone. But she'd want me to be happy. Would want Mia to see that love isn't something you only get once. That opening your heart again doesn't mean forgetting what you had before." Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I'd have this. Someone who sees me, really sees me, without all the money and power and walls I put up. Someone who loves me despite knowing exactly how broken I am." "You're not broken. You're fighting. There's a difference." "I'm tired of fighting, Luke. Some days I wonder if I should just let go. Stop the chemo. Stop the treatments. Just let it happen on its own terms instead of dragging it out." Luke's heart clenched, but he didn't try to argue her out of it. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know. The oncologist says the new protocol is working. Tumor markers are down, progression is slowed. I might have more time than we thought, but the side effects are getting worse, the pain is constant, and I keep thinking, what's the point? To suffer a few more months just to suffer?" "The point," Luke said carefully, "is that you're here, that Mia gets to know you, that we get to have this, whatever this is, for as long as we can. But Eleanor, if the fight is too much, if you need to stop, I'll support you. We both will. Your life, your choice, always." She was crying now, silent tears tracking down her thin cheeks. "How are you so good at this? At saying exactly what I need to hear?" "Practice. Mia's been training me in emotional intelligence for 10 years. Eleanor's laugh was wet but genuine. "That kid is going to rule the world someday." "Probably. I'm just trying to keep up until then." They sat in silence as the sun dropped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Luke thought about time, how much they'd had, how much was left, how every moment together was both a gift and a countdown. But mostly he thought about how lucky he was, despite everything, to have found this, to have answered that wrong number call, to have shown up when someone needed him and discovered he'd needed her just as much. Christmas came wrapped in snow and twinkling lights. Luke and Mia had never done much for the holidays, pizza and a movie usually, small presents they could afford, making the best of what they had. But Eleanor changed everything. She hired decorators to transform her mansion into a winter wonderland, insisted they spend Christmas Eve there, cooked dinner herself despite Luke's protests that she should rest. "I want this," Eleanor said firmly as she attempted to baste a turkey that looked bigger than Mia. "I want normal, family dinner, holiday traditions, one perfect Christmas before—" She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Mia helped Eleanor bake cookies shaped like octopuses, the two of them laughing in the kitchen while Luke pretended not to watch them bond. He'd never thought Mia would accept another woman in their lives, but Eleanor had a way of making space for herself without demanding it, of listening to Mia's endless ocean facts, like they were the most important things in the world, of treating a 10-year-old like a person whose opinions mattered. After dinner, they opened presents by the massive fireplace. Eleanor had gone overboard. A new laptop for Mia's school projects, art supplies, books about marine biology. For Luke, there were practical things he'd never buy himself: quality tools, warm work clothes, a watch that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Eleanor, this is too much," Luke protested. "It's not enough. It's never enough." She pressed a small box into his hands. "One more. Open it." Inside was a key. Heavy, brass, old-fashioned. "It's to the house," Eleanor explained, her voice shaking slightly. "I want you both here. Not just visiting, living here. With me. For however long we have." Luke stared at the key, understanding the weight of what she was offering. "Eleanor, I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but Luke, I'm dying. We don't have time to do things the normal way. And I don't want to spend whatever time I have left alone in this big empty house. I want breakfast with Mia. I want to fall asleep next to you. I want to be a family, even if it's just for a little while." "What about our apartment? My lease?" "Break it. I'll cover the penalties. Move in after New Year's, please. Let me have this." Luke looked at Mia, who was watching them both with careful eyes. "What do you think, baby?" Mia considered, then nodded slowly. "I think Eleanor's right. We don't have time to waste, and this house is really big and really lonely. We should probably help fill it up." "Is that a yes?" Eleanor asked hopefully. "That's a yes," Mia confirmed. "But I get to pick my room, and it has to have space for at least 3 octopus tanks for when I'm famous and rich." "Deal," Eleanor laughed, pulling Mia into a hug. Luke watched them, his heart so full it hurt. 3 months ago, he'd been a single dad barely scraping by, working 60-hour weeks, terrified he was failing his daughter. Now he was sitting in a mansion on Christmas Eve, holding a key to a life he'd never dreamed possible, with a woman who'd somehow become essential to his existence and a daughter who was braver than he'd ever be. "Okay," he said quietly. "We'll move in. But Eleanor, promise me something." "Anything. Promise me you'll keep fighting. Take the treatments. Don't give up, because we need you. Mia needs you. I need you." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I promise. As long as I have you both, I'll keep fighting." They moved in the first week of January, Luke's entire life fitting into 3 carloads. It was humbling and liberating at once, realizing how little he'd actually accumulated in 35 years. Clothes, tools, Mia's things, a few photos. That was it. Everything that mattered fit in his truck. Eleanor had prepared rooms for them. Mia got the bedroom she'd picked out, with windows overlooking the pool and enough space for the marine biology laboratory she was already planning. Luke's things went into Eleanor's master suite, and that first night, lying in bed beside her in the dark, listening to her breathe, Luke felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled since Sarah died. "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, "for taking a chance on me, on us. Thank you for giving me a reason to." January turned into February. The Portland rain returned with a vengeance, turning the city gray and cold. Eleanor's health fluctuated. Good days where she could almost pass for healthy, bad days where she couldn't get out of bed. Luke learned the rhythm of her medications, the signs of an oncoming crisis, how to help without making her feel helpless. Mia adjusted to her new school closer to Eleanor's neighborhood, made new friends, but always rushed home after classes to spend time with Eleanor. They developed routines. Breakfast together every morning, Mia's homework at the dining table while Luke and Eleanor cooked dinner, movie nights on Fridays, Sunday visits to Luke's bench by the river, all three of them now, Eleanor wrapped in blankets while Mia threw stones into the water and Luke held Eleanor close. Dr. Patel was cautiously optimistic. The tumor markers continued to drop. The CT scans showed stabilization, maybe even slight regression. It wasn't a cure. There was no cure, but it was time. Precious, unexpected time. "You're responding better than I hoped, Dr. Patel told Eleanor at her February checkup, Luke beside her holding her hand. "I'm not ready to use the word remission, but we're heading in that direction. If this continues, you could have years instead of months." Years. The word hung in the air like a miracle. Luke felt Eleanor's grip tighten on his hand, felt her body shake with the weight of that possibility. "Years," she repeated numbly. "I could have years. No guarantees, cancer is unpredictable. But yes, if your body keeps responding this way, years is possible. Maybe even many years." After they left the appointment, Eleanor couldn't stop crying. Luke drove them to the river, to their bench, and held her while she sobbed. "I was so ready to die," she gasped. "I'd made peace with it, and now I might get to live? Luke, what do I do with that? How do I plan for a future I thought I'd never have?" "One day at a time. That's all any of us can do." "But what about us? Our arrangement. The contract ends in May. What happens then?" Luke turned her to face him, cupping her face in his hands. "Eleanor, that contract stopped mattering months ago. I'm not here because you're paying me. I'm here because I love you, because somewhere between that first phone call and now, you became my future, contract or no contract." "You love me?" Her voice was small, disbelieving. "Of course I love you. How could I not? You're brilliant and fierce and brave, and you make terrible coffee, and you listen to Mia's octopus facts like they're poetry. I love everything about you." "Even that I'm dying?" "You're not dying anymore. You're living, and I want to be part of that life, for as long as you'll have me." Eleanor kissed him then, desperate and deep, tasting like salt and hope. "I love you too," she whispered against his mouth. "I think I have since you walked into my hospital room and promised I wouldn't die alone. You saved my life, Luke Carter, in every way that matters." Spring came to Portland slowly, the rain finally breaking to reveal green shoots and cherry blossoms. Eleanor's strength returned gradually. She went back to Vail Media part-time, working from home on good days, attending key meetings in person when necessary. Harrington had resigned from the board in March, quietly taking a position at a competitor, his coup attempt permanently thwarted. Eleanor promoted younger blood to the board, people who shared her vision for truth and integrity in journalism. In April, on a sunny Saturday morning, Eleanor called a family meeting. Luke and Mia gathered in the living room, curious. Eleanor looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with a small box Luke recognized from his jewelry store run 3 days ago. "I need to ask you both something," Eleanor began, "and I need you to be completely honest, because this only works if we all agree." "Okay," Mia said slowly, exchanging a glance with Luke. Eleanor took a deep breath, then got down on one knee in front of Luke, wincing slightly at the movement. "Luke Carter, you answered a wrong number that was exactly right. You showed up when no one else would. You loved me when I was dying, and you're loving me through living. You and Mia have given me something I never thought I'd have, a family. So I'm asking you, in front of the most important person in your life, will you marry me?" Luke stared at the ring in the box, simple, beautiful, perfect, and felt his throat close with emotion. "Eleanor." "Wait, she's not done," Mia interrupted, grinning. "Eleanor asked me yesterday if it was okay if she proposed to you, and I said only if she did it right." Eleanor turned to Mia, still on one knee. "Mia Carter, will you let me officially be part of your family? Will you let me be there for school events and science fairs and all your future accomplishments? Will you teach me everything about octopuses and be patient when I get things wrong? Will you give me a chance to love you the way you deserve to be loved? Mia's eyes filled with tears. You're asking me too? Of course. You're part of this family. Luke can't say yes unless you do too. Then yes, Mia whispered. Yes, you can be my family. You can be my... She hesitated. You don't have to call me Mom, Eleanor said gently. I'm not trying to replace Sarah. I could never replace her. But I can be something else, something new. Whatever you're comfortable with. What about Eleanor Mom? Mia suggested. Like, you're Eleanor, but also you're my mom. Is that weird? That's perfect, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. Mia launched herself at Eleanor, nearly knocking her over. Luke joined them on the floor, all three of them tangled together, laughing and crying. Is that a yes? Eleanor asked Luke when they finally pulled apart. Will you marry me? On one condition, Luke said. Name it. The contract. We tear it up, right now. No more payments, no more arrangement. Just us, choosing each other for real. Eleanor nodded. Done. It's been sitting in my desk drawer for weeks. I haven't cashed a check since January. Luke, I'd marry you if you were broke and I was dying. Money was never what this was about. Then yes, Luke said, sliding the ring onto his finger. Yes, I'll marry you. Though technically, I should be the one proposing. Too late. I did it first. You can propose next time. Next time? Mia giggled. How many times are you planning to get married? As many as it takes, Eleanor said, pulling them both close. Forever, if we're lucky. They got married in May, 3 days after Eleanor's contract officially expired, at the community center where Luke and Sarah had met. It was small. Mrs. Chen, Carlos, and the guys from the shop, Eleanor's few remaining friends from Vale Media, Mia as both flower girl and best woman, Dr. Patel and his wife. No press, no photographers, just people who loved them, gathered to witness two people who'd found each other through a wrong number, choose each other for real. Eleanor wore a simple cream dress that actually fit her now that she'd gained weight back. Her hair had started growing in, soft and copper like she'd described, still too short for much, but hers again. Luke wore his suit from the gala, properly tailored now, and couldn't stop staring at his bride like she was a miracle. Because she was. They both were. I always thought love was supposed to look a certain way, Eleanor said during her vows, tears streaming down her face. Perfect and neat, and following all the right rules. But you taught me that love is messy and unexpected, and sometimes it comes from the wrong number at 2 a.m. You taught me that showing up is love, that staying is love, that choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, that's love. I spent my whole life trying to earn love through achievement and success. You just gave it to me because I asked, because I needed it, because you're the kind of person who shows up for people, even strangers. I'm not a stranger anymore. I'm your wife, and I promise to show up for you the way you've shown up for me every single day for the rest of our lives, however many days that is. Luke's vows were simpler, but no less profound. Eleanor, I thought I knew what love looked like. I had it once, and I thought that was my whole story. Then you called me on the worst night of your life, and you gave me a different story. A second chance. A new beginning. You gave me Mia back her smile. You gave me a reason to believe in possibilities again. You're fierce and strong and brave, and you fight for what matters. I'm honored to fight beside you, to love you, to build whatever life we can with whatever time we're given. I promise to always answer when you call, to always show up, to always choose you, today and every day. Mrs. Chen cried through the whole ceremony. Carlos gave a speech about how he'd never seen Luke smile before Eleanor came along, and now he wouldn't shut up about her. Mia read a poem she'd written about families being built from love, not just blood. Dr. Patel quietly told Luke that this happiness, this joy, was probably doing more for Eleanor's health than any medication. At the reception, held in Eleanor's mansion with its gardens in full bloom, Luke slow danced with his wife under string lights while Mia danced nearby with Mrs. Chen. The DJ played an eclectic mix, everything from jazz to pop to Mia's requested Ocean Sounds documentary soundtrack. It was perfect, imperfect, Real. 3 months, Eleanor murmured against Luke's chest. Dr. Patel gave me 3 months last November, said I'd be lucky to see spring. And here you are, June tomorrow, seeing summer. I'm going to see a lot more summers, Luke. I can feel it. My body's fighting back. The cancer's there, but it's quiet now, sleeping. Maybe it'll wake up again someday, but maybe it won't. Maybe we get years. Then we'll take them, every single one. Eleanor pulled back to look at him, her eyes shining. I want to go to Mia's graduation. I want to see her win her first science award. I want to grow old with you, Luke. I want all the normal, boring, beautiful things I thought I'd never have. Then that's what we'll do. We'll be normal and boring and beautiful together. Nothing about us is normal. No, Luke agreed, spinning her slowly. But it's ours. The party went late into the evening. Mia fell asleep on one of the couches, still in her flower girl dress, clutching the stuffed octopus Eleanor had given her as a thank you for being in the wedding. Luke carried her up to her room, tucking her in, brushing hair from her face. Dad? Mia mumbled, half asleep. Is this real? Are we really a family now? Yeah, baby, we really are. Good. I like Eleanor, Mom. She's good at being here. She is. We got lucky. No, Mia said, her eyes drifting closed. Eleanor got lucky. Because she got you, and you always show up. After Mia was asleep, Luke found Eleanor on their bedroom balcony, overlooking the city lights, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders against the cool night air. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Mrs. Carter, he said, testing out the name. I'm keeping veil professionally, but yes, Mrs. Carter at home. I like how it sounds. Me too. They stood in silence, watching Portland sparkle below them. Somewhere out there, someone was probably having the worst night of their life. Someone was scared and alone and reaching for help. Luke thought about the chain of events that had led him here, a random number, a desperate call, a decision to show up when logic said to hang up. How easily he could have made a different choice. How easily this perfect moment might never have existed. What are you thinking? Eleanor asked. That I'm grateful. For the wrong number. For you calling me instead of someone else. For every single moment that led us here. Even the hard ones? Especially the hard ones. They made this matter more. Eleanor turned in his arms, looking up at him with eyes that held their whole improbable story. I love you, Luke Carter. Thank you for answering the phone. I love you too. Thank you for calling. They kissed under the stars, two people who'd found each other in the dark, who'd chosen each other again and again, who'd built something beautiful from fear and loneliness, and one desperate moment of connection. Inside, Mia slept peacefully in her ocean-themed bedroom, dreaming of marine biology and the future she'd have with two parents who loved her. Downstairs, the remnants of a wedding celebration waited to be cleaned up in the morning. In Luke's wallet was a photo of Sarah, carried always, remembered always, but no longer the only love story he had to tell. And in Eleanor's body, cells fought their quiet battle, the cancer held at bay by medicine and stubbornness, and maybe, just maybe, the healing power of having something to live for. 3 years later, Eleanor would be declared in remission. 5 years later, she'd walk Mia across the stage at her high school graduation. 7 years later, she'd cry at Mia's college acceptance to the best marine biology program in the country. 10 years later, she'd still be here, still fighting, still living, still proving that sometimes the stories that start with wrong numbers end exactly right. But that night, on their wedding night, they didn't know any of that. They just knew they had each other, and tomorrow, and whatever came after. They knew that showing up mattered, that love mattered, that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was answer the phone at 2 a.m. and say yes to someone who needed you. Sometimes wrong numbers led you exactly where you needed to be. Sometimes asking for help saved your life. Sometimes strangers became family. Sometimes dying became living. Sometimes the hardest stories had the happiest endings. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found the person who would show up for you again and again in the darkness and the light, in sickness and health, until death did you part and maybe even beyond. Luke and Eleanor had found that, had built that, had become that for each other. And it all started with a wrong number, a desperate plea, and a mechanic who decided that showing up for a stranger was worth it, even when nothing made sense, even when the odds were impossible, even when every logical reason said to hang up and go back to sleep. He'd answered, she'd asked, they'd both shown up. And in showing up, they'd found everything: home, family, love, life. The wrong number had given them all of it. The right person at the right time, disguised as a mistake. The best mistake Luke Carter ever made. The luckiest call Eleanor Vale ever dialed. Together they'd turned midnight desperation into morning hope. Turned 6 months into forever. Turned a contract into a marriage. Turned strangers into soulmates. And every day for the rest of their lives, they'd be grateful for that one moment when Luke's phone rang in the dark, and he chose compassion over convenience, chose showing up over staying safe, chose love before he even knew that's what he was choosing. Because that's what heroes do. Not the ones in movies or books, but the real ones. The mechanics and single dads and ordinary people who just keep showing up, keep choosing kindness, keep answering the phone when someone needs them. Luke Carter was that kind of hero. Eleanor Vale was brave enough to call him, and Mia Carter was wise enough to see that sometimes families are built from wrong numbers and right hearts. Together, they proved that love isn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It's about showing up. It's about staying. It's about choosing each other, day after day, fight after fight, victory after victory. It's about answering the call, every single time, and living happily ever after, one showed up moment at a time.